And a very good morning to you. What a night of drama it was last night in the World Cup in both the games. A lot of people giving out about VAR, particularly our lads. And a lot of people kind of happy enough with VAR because ultimately most of the decisions were correct, and now nobody's out of the World Cup who shouldn't deserve to be out of the World Cup, and I thought it was okay. The other thing obviously that's going on at the moment is that we might not have a football match between Kildare and Mayo at the weekend. Keith O'Neill was on the RTE 6-1 News last night, gave a very strong performance where he said, we're going to Newbridge. If the game's in Croker, the game's in Croker, but we're going to Newbridge.
Yeah, as he is right to do. They were first out of the draw. The only situation in which Kildare would have rightfully had to relinquish their home advantage is if they were drawn against a Division 3 or a Division 4 team. What division are Mayo in?
One.
Just survived by the skin of their teeth, you'll recall.
Kildare didn't.
Kildare did not. Therefore, the game is in Newbridge, according to GAA stipulations, according to their own rules, and they've tweaked those own rules at the say the very least. So Croke Park it is, or no, Newbridge or nowhere, as Kildare is saying.
We're going to hear from Emma Bolton, the former Kildare footballer, a little bit later on. We'll speak with Sean Kelly, of the former president of the GAA as well. But first, I'm delighted to say Ned Quinn, who is the chair of the CCCC, is on the line with us this morning. Ned, good morning to you.
Morning, Joe.
Can I just talk to you a little bit first about how we got to the situation we are? Maybe just to put those details out, as much detail as we can, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah.
The draw gets made yesterday morning on the radio, and immediately after that, everybody goes into fixture planning mode because obviously there's a short turnaround. So at that point, what happens as far as you guys are concerned?
Well, the background to all games that are awarded to home venues is that the CCC have the authority that home venues shall be, subject to the approval of the CCC. And as you are aware also, all our grounds have a safety capacity. So in that context, the information before our meeting yesterday was that the safety capacity for this game in Newbridge would be 8,000. Then when one subtracts the number of season ticket holders entitled to a ticket for the game, this figure further reduces into approximately 4,500. So we were faced then with the options of put these tickets on sale, on general sale online, as we normally do, or divide them equally between the competing counties. That's the 4,500 tickets. And in either scenario, it was felt that it was likely that just over 2,000 tickets would become available to Kildare supporters, as the vast majority of the season ticket holders are from Mayo. I think the figure is approximately 3,500. So the meeting felt that such a situation wasn't tenable and could, if you like, potentially lead to a substantial number of people without tickets turning up seeking admission to the game. Once we decided that this wasn't tenable, it was the prerogative of Kildare, and as in the case of every other county, to nominate an alternative venue. But Kildare declined to do so in this case. So the committee then decided that, due to the scenario I've outlined there, that to fix the game for Croke Park as part of a double-header. Cavan also had to forfeit their home fixture when they were agreeable to this. And as you know, there have been other cases where games haven't been played on the home ground of the county, most notably, I suppose, Waterford in this year's hurling championship.
Okay, can we maybe scroll back a little bit to the season tickets? It's 4,000 season tickets roughly between Kildare and Mayo.
Well, I'm not sure the Kildare number, but Mayo have in approximately 3,500. So if you add another few for Kildare, you subtract that from 8,000, you come to the figure I said, about 4,500 to go on public sale.
Okay.
Divide that in two, and you come to, because that is the custom and practice that has been done up to now, where there are in venues where there are season ticket holders, that they get their allocation, and then the remainder of the tickets are divided more or less equally between the two counties. And
was there an option to say that the Mayo allocation would have been taken up by that 3,500 and that all the rest would have gone to Kildare?
No, the information we had is the season ticket holders have a contract with Croke Park that entitles them to purchase tickets for championship games. Yeah,
I mean, the small print was knocking around on Twitter last night, and there are circumstances where where within that small print that if there is an issue around capacity, then there's no guarantee. But you know, you could have also said that we'll do a pro rata, say you know, there's a solution potentially there. If you go, we're going to put 2,000 away for the season tickets and we'll divide 2,000 to Kildare and 2,000 to Mayo. I understand that it's obviously a difficult situation because you have got these season tickets out there, but it seems certainly from Kildare's perspective that they wanted the game to go ahead and they didn't think there was going to be an issue of people showing up who didn't have tickets, because let's face it, if it's an all-ticket event, it'll be very publicised. Those tickets will sell out really quickly and everybody will know there's no point in showing up to an event without tickets. I don't really understand that whole notion of people showing up without tickets.
Yeah, you can take that view, but we took the other view that they could people, particularly as I outlined, that it's possible that Kildare supporters would just have access to over 2,000 tickets for a home game. And I think if we were in that scenario, we would have other criticisms coming at the CCC for not foreseeing that.
Is that not kind of up to Kildare, given that they have home advantage, that if they feel like they're going to be...
Well, the responsibility for the game at rests with the CCC. Now, I fully understand that any county, Kildare in this case, would like to have their game at home. But there's a bigger picture to be looked at, and the CCC took the view that in this instance that it would be better to take the game and give Kildare the prerogative of nominating another venue, which they declined to do.
Yeah, and once they declined to do that, though, it seems like at that point there's been a breakdown in communication. Is that fair to say? That because they seem to be under the illusion that that meeting at noon yesterday was going ahead, and afterwards they were informed that the game was in Croke Park. Did you tell them you were fixing the game in Croke Park once it wasn't fixed for Newbridge? Was that communication line clear?
Communication was we would fix the venue then, yeah.
Okay, and irrespective of, like at that point, you're just telling them basically?
Well, I can't add anything further to that. That's the situation that has happened on yesterday morning.
Yeah, okay. And do you regret that? Here's the thing. I think everybody wants to actually try and find a way out of this, but it does seem that there's been a disconnect between what Kildare are trying to achieve, what you guys are trying to achieve, and how that was communicated.
Well, I wouldn't accept how it was communicated. This is custom and practice. It has been, as I outlined already, a fact in a number of county grounds that were deemed not capable of staging particular games, and then they had the prerogative of nominating the other ground. And that happened in all those cases, and up to now.
I guess, just to play devil's advocate for a second there, in terms of the lack of communication, Kildare are finding out from the press release that the game is in Croke Park as part of a double header as opposed to it being a negotiated solution.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that.
Is that the case? Like that's how they did find out then?
Well, I wouldn't be communicating with Kildare in my position. Okay.
Is somebody on the CCC talking to Kildare?
I presume, yeah. I would presume they are, yes.
Okay. Look, I'm just trying to get to try and understand how...
I understand where you're trying to get to, but I can only give you the facts as were presented to the CCC committee yesterday. It's a committee of very experienced officials.
Absolutely.
Have dealt with this situation and wouldn't be unmindful of what Kildare would like to have, but we felt it was untenable in this situation with the likely... I mean, in a ground capable of holding it on its own, I would think we could anticipate somewhere in the region of 20,000 spectators turning up. And here we are with a ground with 8,000 and only 4,000 or a little over 4,000 going on public sale tickets.
Can we talk? You said let's talk about the bigger picture, and I'm interested in that because I think it's universally accepted in all invasion games that home advantage really matters, particularly in GAA. Something like 60-odd%, 63% of games are won by the home team. So you can see why a team would want to protect it. Fergal McGill was quoted in several of the newspapers as saying that if anybody other than Mayo had been drawn in Newbridge, that game would have gone ahead in Newbridge. Is that the case?
Well, one couldn't say anybody other than Mayo, but you can visualise scenarios where the game could go ahead, but you could visualise scenarios where the game wouldn't go ahead because, as I said earlier, the home venue is subject to the approval of the CCC, and we have to take on board all the various things and act responsibly, and I feel we've done that in this case. Okay, so sorry, it's not the case then. If it had been Tyrone, would the game have been moved? If it had been Cavan? Well, I can't. That's hypothetical. I can't say, but I wouldn't say there's no situation where it would be removed. Obviously, there's situations where it would take place there. Okay, because it did strike me as being a little bit unfair where you have rules of a competition and home advantage is clearly a very important thing, but we're going to take it off you when a team who has a large support is drawn against you. So basically, it's weighted in favour of the bigger teams, which means the competition actually begins to lack fairness. I think I should point out again that home advantage is subject to the approval by the CCC.
But then
that's the rules.
Okay, but then that's not fair, right? Like that kind of removes.
Well, that's a whole other topic. But as of now,
it's actually not another topic. It's the topic at hand, and really that's why Kildare feel like it's not fair. That's the genesis of the upset that Kildare fans and supporters and the team are going to feel. It's like we're better at home. It's home advantage. We're entitled to that because they're the rules of the competition. But the rules get changed primarily because the opposition has a big support base.
But the rules of the competition are home games subject to the approval by the CCC, and that shall meet the criteria set down by the National Facilities and Health and Safety Committee. And really, I can't add any further to that at this stage.
But do you understand the point that I'm making?
I do, and but I still can't add any further to it.
Well, I guess the point is that the health and safety issue is fairly arbitrarily decided, and it's decided on the basis of a large support base for the opposition. For example, the Gardaí in Newbridge feel pretty confident of being able to deal with the fact that the derby's on in the Curragh at 5:30 and a 7 o'clock throw-in for the crowd that they expect would be fine. So their health and safety aspect seems to have been all the boxes were ticked on that, and it seems like it's not really a health and safety issue so much as Kildare were only going to be able to have 2,000 home supporters. It doesn't seem very clear why ultimately the decision was taken.
Well, the derby scenario hadn't any influence on our decision.
Okay, so it was literally down to the fact that Kildare wouldn't be able to have enough of their own fans in the ground.
Well, as I say, all I can quote you are the rules. The rules say that the home venue shall be subject to approval by the CCC. In this instance, we felt that it was untenable to have the game there, given that Kildare would only possibly have 2.5, or maybe less if they went on general set.
And if Kildare didn't mind that, why do you guys care about that?
Well, that's the decision we made. That's, as I said, now I can't add any further to that at this moment.
Look, and that's fair enough that you made the decision. I'm just trying to work out exactly why you guys ended up making the decision. 'Cause obviously, you know how it looks like the game is fixed for a double header for Croke Park. Tickets are 25 quid. You guys are now telling us that you'll get an extra 10,000 at it. Everybody does the maths and comes up with it's £250,000 is the price of moving the game from Newbridge to Croke Park. And I understand that that's not your motivation, that you guys feel like you want more people to be able to go and see the match. But it's not coming across that way. It's coming across like you made this decision. Kildare somehow were spoken to, although we don't know who was actually dealing with Kildare or talking to them, and the decision is released in a press release, and Kildare are now saying that they won't go, and you guys are telling us that the reason that they're not allowed to have the game at home is because they won't have enough of their own supporters there. But ultimately that should be their decision, right?
Well, I just want to clarify that Kildare clarify that Kildare had the prerogative of nominating another venue other than Croke Park, but they declined to do so.
Yeah, because they wanted the game at home. Like, I can see why they would decline to do so when they're like, look, it's our home, notwithstanding you guys need to rubber stamp it, but that it seems like the rules of the competition, notwithstanding you still have the ability to say, okay, no, we need to ratify this. Like, the health and safety concerns from the local Gardaí were fine. The Kildare County Board seemed okay with the fact that very few tickets would actually go to Kildare people, and the only people who really have an issue with that is the CCCC. So it's hard for everybody else to understand precisely the logic behind the decision and how that was arrived at.
Well, the logic of the decision was that, as I said already, one could anticipate a crowd of 20,000 for this game, and there was going to be 4,000 of those tickets on sale between the two counties. And to us, it meant that we should move the game out of that venue in the best interest of all spectators, both Kildare and Mayo. And that's the decision was made. And as I said to you already, Ger, I cannot add any further to that now.
Ned, just on your point earlier on, just about people who wouldn't have tickets showing up to the venue, like, is there a previous case of this? What makes it so unique to Gaelic games that a whole pile of people without season tickets would actually make their way to Newbridge?
No, we just said I'm just saying it was a possibility. I didn't say it would happen, but it was a possibility. People are eager to see their own county playing championship, and it was a possibility people would turn up seeking to get admission or seeking to buy tickets outside the ground, even though they would have known tickets weren't available.
And why, in particular, is that? Like, what is the actual safety risk there? Is, like, as I say, has there been a previous case of this where we've seen this in the GAA, where this actually becomes a risk to the livelihoods of people who are attending? What's the specific risk we're talking about?
Well, the risk would be that people will get involved with other spectators. That's the risk.
As in crowd trouble?
Well, I wouldn't describe it as crowd trouble, but there could be animosity shown to people who had tickets that they couldn't get them if they claiming they were regular and would probably have been regular supporters of Kildare. I know where you're going with this here, but like as I said already, I can't add any further to the decision was made yesterday regarding this game.
Do you stand by the decision? I guess that's the other thing, Ned. Like, it's not too late for... we seem to be in a brinkmanship situation here where Fergal McGill says Kildare will be thrown out of the championship if they don't show up to Croke Park. The Kildare manager and the Kildare County Board released very strong statements yesterday saying they're going to be in Newbridge. So we're locked in brinkmanship here, and really it's hard to see any way around this at the moment. So what is your working solution at the moment?
I'm not making any comment further than what I've said already, Gerard.
In terms of trying to get a resolution, are you guys talking to Kildare?
I'm not making any further comments at this point in time.
Okay. Did you foresee this being an issue? Like, when you were sitting down yesterday having this meeting, and again, you made the point it's a very, very distinguished committee full of people with lots of GAA experience. Did you expect that you would have this backlash from Kildare and now it seems the wider GAA community?
No, because as I said, there's precedent for this. Other counties have been faced with a similar situation and have nominated venues to host the games, and the games went ahead without any trouble or any animosity. And I suppose the most obvious one are Waterford in this year's hurling championship, who nominated Limerick and Thurles as their venues for two of their would-be home games in the championship. Yeah,
I mean, obviously Waterford fans were very disappointed, and I think in retrospect they would maybe have thought about perhaps having some of those games in Nolan Park, but they did nominate. In this instance, Kildare didn't nominate, so that must have been a bit of a red flag yesterday when the meeting was happening, to go, okay, what's going on here, lads? Why haven't they nominated somewhere?
Well, look, the decision was made yesterday, Ger, and that's all I can say about it.
Okay, and so you guys are standing by that decision, and was Fergal McGill correct when he said that Kildare will be thrown out of the championship if they don't show up to Croke Park on Saturday?
We haven't discussed that at CCC.
Okay, so that might not be the case. So, sorry, I'm just trying to get a handle on exactly where we are.
I know where you're trying to get to, Ger, but I'm not going to make any further comment. I think you should appreciate that.
Okay. It just that, because that kind of contradicts what Fergal McGill said in the papers last night to the Irish Times.
I'm not aware of what was said in the Times, but...
I'll tell you exactly. He said that if Kildare don't show up, Mayo will go through.
Well, I'm not commenting on that.
Okay. What happens next?
I don't know what happens next. We have to wait and see.
Okay. Sorry, like, as in, are there talks scheduled? Is there a way out? Is it your hope that the game will go ahead as fixed in Croke Park on Saturday?
Certainly, that would be my hope, yes, that the game would go ahead as fixed.
Okay, and again, look, I'm not trying to put you in a difficult situation.
Well, I think you are, actually.
I'm not. I'm really not, because ultimately, I don't want Kildare to go out of the championship without having played it.
Neither do I.
Yeah,
neither does anybody else on the CCC. But we have rules.
Yeah, I mean, you do have rules, and one of the fairly common rules is that the home team gets home, the first team out gets home advantage. I understand that you get to rubber stamp that, but it seems that, like...
Well, I don't think it's actually rubber stamping it. It's we have a responsibility. And it's, as I said already, and you've heard me saying, now home venues shall be subject to the approval of CCC, that they meet the criteria laid down by the National Facilities and Health and Safety. Okay.
Well, let me then... were you surprised by how strong Kildare's County Board statement was yesterday, and were you surprised by what Cian O'Neill said on the 6-1 news last night?
When I was travelling home, I didn't see the 6-1 news, but I was somewhat surprised by what Kildare. But then you probably would expect the county to not be happy about a decision like that. But generally speaking, county will accept the rules of the game.
Okay, and can I ask you a rules hypothetical situation? If Kildare were not to show up, what would happen?
I can't answer that at the moment. That's the truth.
Okay. Is there some point during the week when we might get clarity on that, do you think?
I'd expect so, yeah.
like later today, perhaps, or?
Probably not today, no.
And is this now exclusively a CCCC matter, or is it actually a matter really for the broader GAA community, for the GAA president and the director general? Okay.
At this point in time, it's a matter for the CCC.
Okay. And so Kildare would have to go to you and say, we want to appeal the decision on the venue. Is that what would happen?
Yeah.
Okay. And is there any possibility that this match might not be fixed for Croke Park if Kildare appealed that decision?
Not at this point in time, no.
Okay, but if they were to appeal, you guys would hear
that
again,
appeal. We're into hypothetical situations. If this happens, if that happens. And I've agreed to come on here this morning, outline the background to our decision. I'm trying to be as open and honest with you as I can, and that's all I can really do, Ger.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Ned. It is a difficult situation, because I don't actually remember anything like this in GAA history. I don't remember a county board coming out as strong as Kildare have, and I don't also remember the outpouring of support for a county board from other counties. So it's a very difficult situation where we have a fixture fixed and one team saying that they're not going to go ahead with it, and somebody who's very high up in Croke Park saying, well, if you don't, you're getting kicked out of the championship. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if that was the right thing that was said yesterday to the Irish Times by Fergal McGill. I don't know if that just poured some oil on the fire as opposed to calming things down a bit.
Ned, can I just get one last one in? Just in terms of moving forward from this, like whatever happens this week, obviously you made it quite clear that it's still all to be decided. But say if this situation was to happen again in future years, what changes would you make to the whole situation? Would you add another term and condition to the season ticket regulations that would allow you to revoke access to games like this? What changes would you make to avoid a situation happening, or are you satisfied that the current systems that are in place are the correct ones?
I think at the end of every championship season there's a review of all the events that occurred, and I think there would be a review of how you handle situations where a home ground is deemed not capable of hosting a game. And there are certain grounds, if we can move away from Newbridge, there are other grounds where this scenario could arise as well. And I believe we should review this. We made a decision regarding a Congress regarding the championship, but I don't think we examined the consequences of home venues in every scenario. And this could reoccur again, so I think we do need to put very, very positive and very, very straight rules in place that counties will know exactly when they can have a home game and when they can't have a home game. And as regards season ticket holders, I believe you can't enter, to me, my view, that once you enter into a contract with people and take their money, then you're obliged to uphold that contract. And that's the way I would view the season ticket. The season tickets came in for a reason. There was many a time when county was in All Ireland, we heard the sad stories, and heard in my own county where people who went to every game during the year couldn't get a ticket for the All Ireland. And part of the reason the season tickets were introduced was that if a person was going to all the games and they had a season ticket, then they would automatically qualify to purchase an All Ireland final ticket.
Yeah.
But things move on.
They do.
And we have to move on, and we should review the entire situation. But at the end of the championship season, you can't review in the middle of the season.
In the terms and conditions of the season ticket, number 42 says, in the event that the number of season ticket holders exceeds stadium capacity, the GAA offers no guarantee of the availability of seats or entry to that fixture. So you are kind of covered for this very unusual scenario where there aren't maybe enough seats for the season ticket holders. But even in this case, the 8,000 capacity probably would.
No. If you check with the seats in this venue, I think they run to a couple of hundred.
The seats?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so then you're covered by, in the event that the number of season ticket holders exceeds stadium capacity.
If I purchase a season ticket, I would expect GAA to honour the season ticket. But
I guess Kildare would make the point that if they're drawn out first, they would expect the GAA to honour the commitment to have home venue.
Chair, we're going around the houses now, Chair. I think I've said all I can say on the matter.
Fair enough. I appreciate the fact that you've come on this morning, because it's not.
Yeah, I felt it was better that put the details out there, and if we could take the passion out of it and just look at it coldly, I don't think a ground where you can expect 20,000 people to turn up, a ground that has 8,000 with nearly 4,000 of those tickets already committed, and you're reduced to dividing the remaining tickets amongst the competing counties. I don't think that's a good situation either. I know there will be passions at both sides about it, but
yeah, and look,
that's the scenario that we face with.
It's not
ideal. That's
ideal.
why I came on this morning, was to set the facts out, that the information that we had at our CCC meeting and how and why we arrived at the decision we arrived at. And I'm not going to add anything further to it now, Gerard.
Grant, that's fine. And look, the allegation always in these cases is that it's just about money at the end of the day. And you're making the point that it's about trying to get the most people into the ground to see the match as possible.
Yeah, and I'm making the point that it need not have been in Croke Park.
And that's where the Kildare County Board is saying, well, it's Newbridge or nowhere. And look, I'm not asking you to comment on that anymore, because ultimately that's the row that they're having with you guys at the moment. And you've said that you hope the game goes ahead in Croke Park this weekend, and that no decision, I guess, has been reached about what might happen if Kildare were to continue to decide that they won't show up. Is that correct as we stand?
No, we don't want to get to that situation. And Gerard, this is about my fourth time saying that's all I'm going to say, but this time I'm definitely saying that's all I'm going to say.
Ned, thanks very much for joining us.
Okay.
It's Ned Quinn there, the chair of the Central Competitions Control Committee.
It seems that if you've got a small ground, you're going to get punished on a competitive level. That if this is a sort of process that the CCCC are going to go forward with in the future, that if your capacity is under 10,000 seats, which is quite often the case with weaker counties and even indeed with a stronger county like Kildare, that your competitive advantage, if you were ever pulled out first in a draw like we had yesterday morning, then your competitive advantage is taken away. That would suggest to me kind of a favouring of the elite.
Emma Bolton, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, lads. How's the form?
What do you make of that?
Yeah, look, it's a mess, really. I suppose listening to Ned and a couple of the comments he made, he probably spoke there on a couple of points and said that, when we initially brought the rule out in Congress, they probably didn't do enough homework in terms of the weaker counties, in terms of grounds being able to hold games that if they did come out first in the pot, which, in my opinion, is a little bit sloppy. This was always going to happen. And I just think it's extremely unfair on players, both sets of players. They should be really looking forward to a game this weekend where, the reward after hard games at the weekend was to get into the next round of the championship. And, your preparation starts probably with a recovery session the day after, and then you put your plans in place then moving forward onto the weekend. And it just affects the whole thing in terms of, I suppose, logistically, you've guys in the background there that are, be it for Mayo, trying to, be it book train tickets down to Newbridge, a bus, accommodation, meals, there's numerous things even on the Kildare side of it, pre-match meals, probably an itinerary on the day and things like that. It messes the whole thing up, and it's a complete distraction for players. Now, look, they're all professional, in mindset and approach, and I don't think there will be an issue. It's something that needs a resolution needs to come within the next 24 hours, if not today.
Yeah, if you are amongst those Kildare players over the last 24 hours and you saw the statement that the Kildare County Board released and you saw Cian O'Neill's performance last night on the news, you're not playing in Croke Park, are you?
No, I don't think so. He was extremely adamant in what he was saying. I thought he spoke extremely well. He was very articulate. He was very calm in how he put it across, how he put his point across, and even the county board statement as well. To be fair to them, they've probably been receiving a little bit of negativity over the last couple of weeks, and it's fantastic to see them sticking behind our team and putting a real stamp down and a marker down that we are playing this game in Newbridge. And based on their statement, they broke everything down. I had a good read of it last night. They broke everything down, and then at the end they were fairly firm and said, "Look, we will be turning up to Newbridge at 7 o'clock on Saturday night." And that's as it is. That's what they will be doing. It's fantastic to see them sticking together, and I just hope there's a resolution over the next couple of hours.
The main thing that strikes me from all this is the sense of unfairness. Is that you start a competition, there are a set of rules, everybody buys into those set of rules, everybody understands what that set of rules are, and then because there's this small print about, well, subject to confirmation, it's like you buy a Garth Brooks ticket, it's subject to confirmation, subject to licence. It's like, well, ultimately, if a team is big enough, then we're going to decide that they have enough supporters to make you not be able to play in your home ground. And so this draw is actually bollocks.
Yeah, it is. And, every inter-county manager will, come qualifiers, you don't want to be looking too far ahead, but they put itineraries together. They put monthly plans ahead. They put 2-week plans ahead. in order with, to plan for the players, to let them know what they're doing. And, rules are rules. The rules say that, the first team out of the hat will get home advantage. We've played in Newbridge to full capacity. There's not much, I don't think of any health and safety issues. We played Antrim there a couple of years ago, on the day Dermot Early buried his father, and the capacity is 9,000, but it felt like there was 40,000 in the place. There wasn't room to stand sideways, and I mean, since that they've cleaned up toilets, they've cleaned up dressing rooms, they've tidied railings up around pitch. The whole thing in terms of a health and safety issue, I don't think is there anymore. New entrances were made, so to get 9,000 people in there, I don't think there is an issue. Look, and as you said, you buy tickets for a concert, there are some people that are going to lose out, and I know the GAA want to prepare people and get people that have season ticket holders into the game, but people are going to be disappointed. And I know the number of season ticket holders outnumber the capacity, but there will be people disappointed. But rules are rules, and the GAA have got to stick with them.
The season ticket holders are now more important than home advantage, is what we're being told. Even though there is a stipulation within the season ticket holders when they buy the ticket that they're not guaranteed a seat if the capacity of the ground exceeds or is less than the number of season ticket holders.
And they haven't paid for this particular ticket as well for the weekend, is the one thing. At least if you're buying a ticket to whatever Gareth Brooks, you've actually made a transaction to Ticketmaster, and then that gets refunded. With this, the money won't actually be taken out of the account until you actually get the ticket in your hand, which is another point in this. But just one other thing, Emmett, Ned Quinn was saying there that when it comes to the health and safety around the ground, that there could be some sort of animosity between those who don't have a ticket and those who do have a ticket. Do you subscribe to that at all? It doesn't seem, it's not something I've ever seen. Like, I mean, there's plenty of people who are outside Croke Park on All-Ireland final day without tickets, and you'd rarely see any animosity, much less any sort of crowd trouble that would kind of incite some sort of problem with a safety capacity or anything like that.
No, I don't agree with that. I just think maybe it's a little bit of a get out on his part and on the CCC's part as a token excuse just to get over that. Like, it's not going to be an issue. Like, I presume season ticket holders, they're guaranteed a seat, is it? Like, there's only 200-300 seats in Kildare in Conlets, so if you go in with a season ticket holder, you're either going to be sitting or you're going to be standing, so it's a poor excuse in my opinion on his end, but they've got to sort this out ASAP. It's not fair on players, it's not fair on supporters, it's not fair on the GAA as a whole. I mean, what happens? Do Kildare go get an injunction if there is a walkover? I don't know the court process. Is there going to be a 2-week hold up on that? It needs to get sorted straight away, because the whole championship could be held up as a result of this.
Well, let's tease that out, right? So, what's the level of feeling in Kildare about this at the moment? Like, I'm living in Dublin at the moment, so I haven't actually been down, and I don't know. But looking at my Twitter feed, people are unbelievably angry about this in a way that, like, I haven't seen Kildare fans this united since 1998, really. And ultimately, if Kildare were to take the field in Newbridge, I imagine a bunch of people would show up, that there would be a festival atmosphere, a ball would get thrown in, a score would get scored, and then I would expect that they would go to court after that. And I would 100% back that decision to go to court.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100% agree with you. And the feeling down here is that it's Newbridge or nowhere. They've been able to host Mayo, Monaghan, Tyrone in the league this year. Now, I know, look, in terms of numbers and supporters, you're going to get a little bit more, or maybe a lot more in terms of the championship. But there were no issues with health and safety. Everybody in the county is behind the team and the management and the county board in that regard. And in terms of having it in Newbridge, there's a lot of support for the team out there from numerous outlets in terms of other counties and other media outlets as well. And it's great to see, because I think people have had enough now. The GAA have moved games and changed fixtures and that type of thing, and it's enough is enough in terms of Kildare, because they put money into doing up the dressing rooms and doing up everything like that, and they have the capacity, they have everything involved there to hold the game. And for me, it has there's no reason why you can't go ahead there. It's a poor decision, and they need to sort it out straight away. Yeah,
and I'm basically asking Kildare fans, Kildare supporters, Kildare GAA people are feeling pretty radicalised by this and are quite happy for the team to play brinkmanship and to be out of the championship come Saturday evening if that's what happens.
Like, it's and on that as well, I'd love to know the mentality of some of the guys in there. Like, are they going to go full on ahead with this? Because, you know, if there is a risk that you're going to go out of the championship on this sort of basis, you'd be extremely disappointed with that after all the hard work you've put in. You know, it's down to Croke Park now what they're going to do. They talk about player welfare, they talk about everything that goes with that. Are you going to let a team be given a walkover on the basis of someone not turning up for a game that you promote, a game where that's an amateur game? You're going to let something like this happen on the basis of a pitch and where you're going to play it, and a couple of season ticket holders. I think common sense needs to prevail here. Play the game in Newbridge. You know, learn a little lesson from it. Go back, do your review. Make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, and move forward. But you know, for the whole GAA supporters, for the two counties involved, for the players, for the management, for the two county boards, the game needs to go ahead in Newbridge. There's no issue with anything in terms of health and safety or anything like that. You just need to make a decision here now. You know, take a little rap on the knuckles and get on with it and move on.
Emmett, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. That's former Kildare footballer Emmett Bolton giving us a sense of what the feeling is around Kildare.
Like, the thing about this is the attitude from the GAA and the CCCC is that this isn't a show of favouring the elite, because there is never any explicit way of doing that. It is in the small things that you do, the little moves that are made, without being explicitly elitist. The end result of the actions that you kind of proceed with are subsequently elitist, and that's what's after happening here. Just because you sit down at Croke Park and you don't say, I prefer Mayo to Kildare, doesn't mean that some of the decisions you make won't favour Mayo over Kildare, and that's what's after happening here. Elitism doesn't mean a worldview of elitism. It means that the kind of the system is favoured in a way that will favour the elite. And like, you don't really want to kind of bring Mayo too much into this, because it's not their fault whatsoever. They've got a great group of travelling supporters and things like that, but ultimately they are worth so much to the GAA. They're worth so much to the coffers of Croke Park that they do form the very definition of what is elite in the GAA's eyes. It's unconscious in some respects. Although it's not that unconscious, because it's not unconscious anymore. No, and also, like, we should stress that there is a very specific financial benefit from moving the game to Croker, in that you get those extra 10,000, possibly 12,000, paying 25 quid, that's €250,000. So at the stroke of a pen, you're like, off we go. When Ned Quinn was saying there that it's not about Croke Park, that they wanted a neutral venue and it didn't have to be Croke Park, that's irrelevant. That's completely irrelevant. The point here is that the GAA want to get as many supporters paying through the turnstiles, and it's nothing to do with Croke Park. Like, it's nothing to do with Mayo might be more used to Croke Park or anything like that. There is also there is an element of that for sure when it comes to the competitive advantage. But ultimately, the nub of the point here is that the GAA want more people going through the turnstiles. All right. Sean Kelly, the former president of the GAA, is on the line to give us his thoughts on this. Sean, with a little bit of distance from how this whole system works, we seem to be in a weird brinkmanship that I don't remember a precedent for. I know there's precedent in terms of teams moving out of home venues, but I don't remember as strong a feeling calcifying around an issue as we currently have at the moment. What's your read, first off, on how we got here and any possible solutions to the issue?
Yes, I'm somewhat amazed and disappointed, really, that the situation has got to this. And I can understand perfectly the frustration of Kildare, because I too was listening to the draw on the radio yesterday morning, and I assumed it was going to be in Newbridge. And I was somewhat surprised it was changed. But then I suppose when you look at it, there is a tendency, when grounds are very small, to move the games elsewhere to accommodate as large a crowd as possible. And I think putting the emphasis on the money is probably slightly unfair. It's more about accommodating the spectators who want to attend. And thankfully, both Kildare and Mayo have very loyal followings. And especially when they win a match or two, they really generate great support. So we're now in a dilemma. I think ultimately it's in everybody's interest that the game would be played. So you mentioned there a possibility of $250,000 extra. Maybe the GAA could sit down with the Kildare County Board and work out some way that they will get large compensation for it, and maybe that might help to get the game played, because you do not want to stand off, which would be very, very bad for the whole GAA. If you had Mayo turning up in Croke Park and Kildare turning up in Newbridge, to be unprecedented, to be an unholy mess. And I think we need to try and at least get over the hump for this weekend, and then get very clear guidelines for all future home and away matches, where the cut-off point will be if the ground isn't big enough, so that everybody knows in advance.
So just to clarify, you're saying a deal could be done where Kildare would be compensated, money would be given to Kildare to basically convince them to play the game in Croke Park?
It's a possibility, because we're in an unholy mess and it needs to be sorted, and sorted quickly. And I think the players in particular need certainty of what's going on. The management needs certainty. And it's not good for anybody. They're all amateur players. All the supporters are voluntary. Everybody in this is doing it for the best. And mistakes will be made, and this is a terrible mistake to make. But I think in the interest of the overall spirit of the association, a solution needs to be found, and found quickly. I think long term, though, what is really needed in a place like Kildare especially is probably a 20,000 all-seater stadium, which I think would be very viable, given their location, given their support, given their general population, etc. And I think that might come into consideration as well if they're trying to do a deal to get the game played next Sunday.
Surely Cian O'Neill wouldn't take it too kindly to see a compensation deal be struck up between Croke Park and Kildare GAA, because I know you've kind of argued against it there, but that is one of the things that is being that the GAA are being accused of here, is trying to get as much money as they possibly can. And ultimately, what is the benefit here to the Kildare players and to the management team? Like, I can't imagine Cian O'Neill would be too happy if Kildare County Board were to go ahead with that or to accept it. I know it's all hypothetical, Sean, but that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I can see that point, and I know Cian fairly well because he's involved in the Kerry set-up. He's making good progress now, and I think for him, what he really wants at the end of the day is to have a right good crack at Mayo and have a great chance of beating Mayo, I think, especially now that Mayo were without their two midfielders, Seamus O'Shea and Tom Parsons. Kildare are rising again, and I think that momentum needs to be maintained. So ultimately, what the players and Cian O'Neill want is to have a game and to win it. And I think that will be the key point. So they're all reasonable people. Get them around the table and try and get it sorted out, I think, would be my advice to everybody involved.
Did you ever have a situation like this when you were in charge?
Thanks be to God, no. My major controversy was the opening of Croke Park. But now that it's maybe a situation where a county has got a home venue and they're not getting it, that is a difficult position. And I can understand 100% the frustration. But ultimately, I think that they need to calm down, hopefully, and look at the situation maybe long term and try and work out something. And I think then they could certainly look at, as I said, getting these rules written down specifically so there's no argument when it comes to draws in the future.
So, you know, like, I understand how this all works. It's like, I mean, it's effectively how politics works. It's like a little bit for you, a little bit for me. Let's find the deal. What's the cost of the deal here? And that's obviously what the conversation will be between Croke Park, the new president, the new director general, who obviously knows the finances unbelievably well, and the Kildare County Board. But the Kildare County Board have come out and said, we need this game to go ahead in Newbridge. So if they take the money on offer from Croke Park, and that's what we're talking about, then I think they're in disgrace and they have to resign, because they said under no circumstances will this game go anywhere. And at some point they'll have said, yeah, you can buy us. We're available, and this is our price, whatever that price is.
Yeah, but it's not really about buying. It's about understanding their position and coming to an arrangement so the game can go ahead. Either that or the game goes ahead in Newbridge and the GA says we made a big mistake. Okay, it's not about the money. Let the game go ahead in Newbridge if that's the ultimate decision that has to be made. So I think they're the two choices. I wouldn't like to be in the middle of it, but definitely for me, I want to see the game going ahead, because that's what the players would want ultimately. That's what management would want ultimately. That's what supporters would want. So let's get it sorted There's only a day or two to do it.
I think the latter of those two options is clearly the more satiable of the two, I think. But like you talk about the long-term solution here, is this kind of moment of solidarity from Kildare not the exact sort of long-term solution we need? Because there will be a legacy from this. There will be a legacy of the smaller man standing up to the big organisation and saying, no, listen, these are the rules. This is what we were under the understanding of, that we would have our home game, and this is how things should be in the future. So this moment of solidarity that some people might view as quite rash or quite an extreme level to go to is quite important for the future of the organisation, no?
It should be important if the organisation wasn't prepared to take the mistakes that were made on board and rectify them to everybody's satisfaction. And that's really what's needed. And also the whole question of looking at counties who haven't the venues to take the big matches has to be looked at as well. We saw it with Wicklow, we saw it with Waterford in the hurling this year, where they had to play all their Munster Championship matches away. And I think that whole situation is now evolving because we're having more games. The idea is to have counties having more home games, but you also want to accommodate the growing number of spectators who thankfully want to go to the matches. So there has to be a different focus now. There has to be a look at the overall supply of grounds and what is needed in the future and work out something so that counties can benefit. All counties can benefit, and I can see that in relation to Kildare. I can see it especially in relation to Waterford, my own province, and definitely there is need for fresh thinking and a fresh approach.
Totally. Look, the only thing that strikes me, last question, is there an idea roughly in your head about how much compensation you would offer if you were on the GAA side of the negotiating table today to a county like Kildare? It's twofold really. It's like, look, we'll help you build a stadium, we'll help you fix what's going on if you agree to this, and secondly, here is some cash to help you pay for some coaches. What kind of figure would you have in your mind?
It depends on what the total take is. So you'd have probably do a short-term deal because of the match itself, but you'd also have to look at if they go along with what I'm suggesting, to build a proper stadium that they can hold big matches into the future and actually make money on it, because you could have it used for other games as well, like World Cups, etc. And I think there is a great opportunity there to look at that and to say, okay, we'll finance that, we'll help to get you to get support from the Leinster Council, Central Council, government, etc. And I think that's where a little bit of focus needs to be put on as well.
Okay, so that's the opportunity for him today. Sean Kelly, thanks very much for joining us. That's Sean Kelly, MEP, but of course, a former president of the GAA. Let's get the view from Mayo. James Horan is on the line to us this morning as well. James, this is as big a mess as I can remember in terms of fixtures and scheduling, when it seems like it's a relatively straightforward thing to try and do. What's your take on where we are at the moment, and ultimately what do you think is going to be the outcome here?
Yeah, it's a complete mess. You know, the statement that came out yesterday from both Cian O'Neill and the Kildare board, to me, to release statements like that, or for Cian O'Neill, the manager, to go on the national airwaves, you know, that's all discussed, agreed. They've prepared for the worst case scenario. You know, all that's been planned. You know, because if we press this nuclear button, we have to be prepared to deal with what the consequences could be. You know, so to me, all that's been discussed and agreed, and Kildare's position is entrenched, and they're not for moving. So we have an impasse. We saw what you know from McGill, what the GA statement has been. So they're not for moving either. So I don't know where this is going. I get what Sean is saying into the future, and you know, trying to soften the narrative a little bit from a GA point of view. You know, that in the future and compensation, but that's not addressing whatsoever what's happening now. I can absolutely see Kildare's point of view. You know, first thing I do is you put yourself in. You're a manager of that Kildare team. You know, you've been on the road. You've had a hard season. Hard league. You've been on the road. You've got 2 good away wins. When I suppose a lot of people thought they'd just go out tamely, so they've fought for that, and they get a home draw against a big team, and you know, you'd fancy yourself, or they'd fancy themselves with a bit of a bounce that they're on in a home venue, and then for that to be just ripped away from you, really, without, you know, you'd feel it was without any consultation or without any thought or without anything. And you can absolutely see the reaction of the players and the manager and the board eventually of, no way, this ain't happening. So we're really in a bind here.
Yeah. If you were Mayo and you're watching this massive situation unfold, you've got a plan for all the eventualities. One of those is that you show up in Croke Park and no one else shows up and you get a walkover, and maybe that's fine. One of the other eventualities is that at the last minute the game gets switched to Newbridge. That's not so fine because you haven't prepared for that, you haven't planned for it. But okay, you make those contingency plans. Another one is that the game doesn't happen and that we end up in court and that the whole season gets a bit derailed and suddenly you're sucked into a saga. Do you come out and say, oh, we play the game in Newbridge, no big deal for us, and then ball's back in the GAA's court and you're on the moral high ground, not that you're not anyway, but you've seized control of the narrative a bit and said, look, we've absolutely no qualms here and we support Kildare in what they're doing?
Yeah, look, a lot of players, I'm sure a lot of Mayo players and players around the country, you saw it in the GPA statement as well, and to me the GPA wouldn't release that statement unless they did a straw poll of the vibe on the ground from a lot of players, so I'm sure that's the feeling of a lot of players. But from a Mayo point of view, Stephen Rochford, I can only assume as manager of the team, this isn't anything to do with him. Stephen Rochford is preparing for a game on Saturday against Kildare. There might be one or two issues with the venue. He simplifies it for his players. The official location at the moment is Croke Park, so that's what he prepares for. But he'll be saying to the players, I'm sure they look at that game, everyone knows what's going on, so he might be saying that, look at that game, there's a chance that it could be in Kildare. Regardless, we're preparing for that match. So they'll have a lot of their prep done, but he'll have to leave a scenario that, yes, that game could be changed, because if you go tunnel vision that it's Croke Park and there is a change, then that could upset some of the prep. So you need to prepare for the Saturday, for the Kildare game in Croke Park at the moment. But if that changes, so what? We'll have our hotels provisionally booked, or we'll have whatever done. So all that will be covered. You just worry about getting yourselves right on the field. That kind of conversation will be what happened. But you see it coming in that Mayo should stand in solidarity. That's not in this position. This is a GA generated issue. It's not a Mayo generated issue. So it's for me, for Stephen and the Mayo County Board this is for the GA to sort out.
I totally understand that. The only corollary to that is that somehow you're giving Kildare this sense that they're on their own, whereas actually if you stand with them, then suddenly you're not the enemy at all, and it's much harder for them to poke the head off you on Saturday evening. Yeah,
there's a lot to it, and again, go to Cian O'Neill's position. As I said, it's what a rallying call this could be for that Kildare team. The Kildare public were there was a lot of exasperation over the team over the course of the year. No wins in 10 games and all that kind of stuff. It's just a backdrop to it, which is very interesting for me, is that this will fire up a Kildare county really, and they'll be all aligned, and that can be a powerful weapon for a team at times. So it's a high stakes poker game. I'd say at the moment, but again, I have no idea how this is going to finish up. If Sean mentioned their compensation and bits and pieces. If I work with Cian O'Neill, I just cannot see Cian O'Neill to come out. The same way I can't see him for turning. I just can't see it. And if the Kildare County Board took some compensation for this game, that's. How is that going to play out in public forums? It wouldn't be a strong position for Kildare County Board. So I'm not sure that's the solution for this problem now.
Yeah, I mean, it has the bang of the £5 million that Sepp gave the FAI in the aftermath of the Thierry Henry handball. If there is a deal done on compensation, they won't come out and publicly say it. But it's interesting that Sean Kelly went, "This is how it'll work, lads." There was no hesitation. I have to think long and hard about this. It was like, you'll get around the table with the Kildare County Board and you'll go, "Compo, how much? What do we need to get this deal done?" And if that happens, the Kildare County Board are dead to the Kildare fans, to the supporters, to the team and to the management. They are dead to them if they take the money.
Absolutely, and you'd have to assume when Cian O'Neill and the Kildare County Board yesterday morning, early, whenever it was, when they sat down, that there was, they all signed up for the worst case scenario, because any officials involved in GAA with any experience will know that there'll be some sort of terms and agreement, or there'll be something offered, because this impasse it can't happen. So there was going to be some sort of negotiation. So I'm sure that the Kildare groups said that it's nothing else except Flanders Park. So so I don't know if that is going to be a solution conversation at this time around.
One last thing, your advice really to everybody on the Mayo side would be keep stum, let this thing play out, plan away for all the eventualities, and keep the head down.
Yeah, and I think it has to be. I'm sure there's a lot of players that would support. I think most reasonable people think that Kildare, it should be in Kildare. I know the CCC have to look at everything, and they're genuinely would be. I'm sure that they're solid concerns that they have, that there could be safety, if not within the ground, because that'd be your all tickets or your 9,000 tickets or whatever it is, but around Newbridge, like the Mayo, last weekend there was 11,000 or 12,000 down in Thurles. There'll be a huge crowd regardless of tickets knocking around. So I'm sure it is a concern, from the guards' point of view to Croke Park. So it is something that does need to be reviewed, because there is potential there. I know there's comparisons made to if Man United travel down to Scunthorpe or whatever it is, but that's been happening there, and they're familiar with that, and the policing systems or whatever it is. It doesn't really happen in the GA where you have a huge overswell of people into a small town, and how that's dealt with. So there is some genuine concerns there, but again, nothing that probably couldn't be managed on the day of the game. All
right, James, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Right, take care.
James Horan, the former Mayo manager, giving us his thoughts on it. Jack Anderson is on the line. He's on the line all the way, I think, from Melbourne this morning. Jack, good morning to you. How you doing? Good evening to you.
Good morning to you all.
So, just to fill in a bit of background about your own background, you've been a member of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and yet you've also got a fairly strong understanding of GAA discipline, so you might be the best qualified person in the world to talk about some potential outcomes here at the weekend. Let's just war game, worst case scenario. Kildare show up in St Conleth's Park at 7 o'clock, throw in an imaginary ball with, I don't know, Christy Moore throwing the ball up or whoever. Mayo are in Croker for the official game. The ball gets thrown in there and they score a goal, Barney Rock style, from the 1980s. At that point, Kildare lodge an objection. The objection gets thrown out. They go legal. What is their legal route? How do they actually approach this from a legal perspective at that point?
Yeah, the interesting thing about CCC is it's a really unusual position within the rule book in that you can't appeal decisions internally from the CCC. So your only option then is, it's a quirk of the thing, your only option is to go maybe legal. But that depends, of course, on whether or not the GA disciplinary bodies get involved. So there may be nothing stopping, for example, the Disputes Resolution Authority coming in and saying, listen, we can mediate this and keep it out of the courts. So that may be a simple solution, because technically the DRA is independent of the GA, and you just settle down between the parties and do it that way, which is, I think, advisable for everyone, because with the legal thing, the best you'll get is an injunction to stop things, but what happens then? So you're going to have to decide this in some way. So I think a mediated solution is probably the best one.
Because we had Ned Quinn on a little bit earlier on, and I was actually asking them, can Kildare appeal your decision to fix the game for Croke Park? And I mean, I certainly got the impression that he was saying they can, and we can talk to them about that. Now, I don't know if that conversation is we will appeal this to maybe whatever, but actually that allows them to have that conversation that Sean Kelly says they're going to have, which is a money conversation where money changes hands and suddenly Kildare decide, actually, you know what, we kind of we like our chances in Croke Park this weekend. But where are we from a legal perspective then, once the CCCC fixed the game for Croke Park?
Yeah, you're in a kind of a strange situation, because first of all, if you look at Kildare, anyone who entered, if you like, the competition had a legitimate expectation that once they were first out of the draw, they had a home match. Okay, but you balance that against the overall powers that the CCC have in terms of fixing the matches, which is quite a considerable power, both at central level and at club level. So you're kind of in a strange situation in that sense. And the CCC's arguments seem to be, obviously, look, it's a bigger capacity, but they also have other health and safety concerns and other concerns as well with regards to the season ticket holders in that. But we seem to have a very entrenched scenario in this. And I don't think going legal on it will solve anything, to be honest with you. And that you're going to have to sit down and do that and talk to each other. In the long term, there are so many other sports that this happens so many times, and all other sports would have, say, licensing arrangements whereby at certain stages in the competition, if your ground doesn't have the capacity, then you can't hold it. And this might be a solution in this case, where you go to Kildare, you explain in a reasonable way, look, we've concerns about capacity, etc., will allow you to nominate another nearest home venue. And that's occurred in other rugby competitions as well, for example, where your capacity is too small and you have another kind of home venue. So this can be done. And it's interesting that immediately, and I suppose somewhat cynically, it's come down to compensation, but it doesn't seem that Kildare will accept compensation. And how do you fix that? And what kind of a precedence is that set? So even if you ring fence the compensation for, I don't know, coaching purposes or whatever, I mean, is this going to happen again in the future? I think the solution is that you sit down with Kildare and you give them a choice as to what their nearest and best home venue is. And that's probably the way to solve it, because legally you're in a complete mess.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty with that is that the situation became very entrenched yesterday when Croke Park officials were saying, show up or Mayo go through. And that was after the press release was issued where it was announced that the game was in Croke Park, and that's how Kildare ended up finding out that the game was in Croke Park. Because up to that point, they'd been offered the opportunity to nominate a nearest home venue, and they declined that because they checked with the Gardaí, who said, yeah, we can handle the policing issues around this on Saturday night if it's a 7 o'clock throw-in.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, people's positions become entrenched, and that's fine. And if you want to go legally to play out the entrenched positions, you'll pay for it. You'll pay for it straight up in legal costs, but also you'll pay for it down the line in the precedent it sets. So I certainly think a straightforward mediated solution, which can be done pretty quickly, can solve this. And I think there are lessons to be learned, going forward with regard to the qualifiers. Have the draw pretty quickly after the qualifiers are done. Give yourself extra time to sort out these issues rather than going into the next Monday or Tuesday and then we end up in this scenario.
Yeah, you can do the draw weeks in advance, actually, rounds 3 and 4. If it's Mayo or Tip, it'll be versus Kildare or whoever, and that team has, you can definitely plan for that. And the other thing is you can say, look, lads, your ground's not up to scratch. We're going to help you to finance getting it up to scratch. In the meantime, pick a ground that's going to be your home ground until we get there. Like, there's definitely ways around that. The situation we find ourselves in at the minute is the DRA already the only port of call within the GAA, beyond obviously the office of the President and the Director General, who of course have the power to roll the cash into the middle of the table.
Yeah, it's strictly under the official guide. It's very little powers in eternal appeal from a CCC decision. But what can happen, I've seen that happen before, is you have the mess at the weekend where the two teams turn up at different venues, and then, for example, say Kildare are thrown out, and then there may be a right of appeal under a different avenue to go through the whole process in that, and use the hearings committee and the appeals committee and all that. But I just think that you need to intervene now and try and come to some sort of solution, because inevitably there will be either a legal or an internal appeal, and I don't think anyone's going to win by that. It'll just disrupt the whole schedule of the qualifiers and cause legal costs to mount. So this is something that can be done, and lessons learned thereafter.
What do you think the solution or the ultimate outcome is? Is it Kildare end up saying we'll play in Croker, or? Yeah,
I think, let's say if it went legal, I think from my point of view, just looking at it slightly outsider now, I think that the arguments, I can see Kildare's argument is the legitimate expectation were first out of the hat. But you can see the CCC's arguments with regard to health and safety, with regard to season ticket holders, and with regard that they have an overall right within the rule book that they set the agenda with regards to fixtures, and that's a long-standing thing. So I think in a legal terms, they probably have the slightly more technical and better argument in that. Whether or not they want to exercise that, or whether or not Kildare wants to test that, is another thing. And personally, I wouldn't. I'd just get a mediator in and sort it out straight away.
Maybe is there a solution here, or it's not a solution really, just hypothetically, that a mess might be the kind of preferred option from a Kildare point of view, just because it's going to enforce change in the future. I mean, if it's a nice, clean sweeping under the carpet of this situation, Jack, the GAA might be less likely to change in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. I mean, but from what I can see, Kildare's argument is pretty straightforward, you know, and Cian O'Neill was pretty straightforward. We have a home game at a key time in the championship. We're going to use it. I mean, there's no more, no less than that. So I don't know, are Kildare really thinking about what's going on in the future in the GAA? I think the GAA itself will learn lessons from what happened here in terms of making it explicit what it means by a home advantage and when home advantage can be lost, when capacity issues, etc., kick in. That's been done in so many other sports. There's no problem with that. I think you've got an acute problem now. You've got both sides that are entrenched. And I don't think, even though I said the GAA probably has a slightly stronger legal argument, I don't think they want to be in a situation after the weekend where Kildare are thrown out after a farcical situation in both Newbridge and Croke Park. I don't think anyone wants that. That will cost more than the legal costs, if you like, in terms of goodwill towards Kildare.
Yeah, okay. Just on the mediated solution at the moment, who would do that and who potentially could? Is that Director General / President? Is that role?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with a mediation is both sides have to agree to it. So if the GAA take the view that the CCC fix the fixtures and they do so with their usual powers, well, then they may well say, no, we're not going into mediation. Equally, Kildare may say, well, we're playing at home, so that's the way it goes. I think both parties now, and even Ned Quinn coming on today to try and explain the situation, I think you're going to incrementally get there in terms of both sides saying, listen, you know, we have a window here where we've an important GAA qualifier match. This bringing the whole thing into disrepute by where we're going now. Let's just sit down, talk about it, and agree thereafter to learn the long-term lessons. I don't want to put the DRA in a position like that, because I used to be the secretary of the DRA, and I'm sure that's the last thing they want. But it might be an obvious solution. I can certainly say that a legal solution in terms of an injunction will cost a hell of a lot.
All right, Jack, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us. Jack Anderson is the Professor Director of Sports Law at Melbourne Law School, and as he said, of course, the former Secretary of the DRA and the GAA, and also a member of the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So if he's saying you don't want to go to court, then I totally understand that. I do think, though, that there's enough antagonism after the last 24 hours that I wouldn't be surprised if we did end up getting there. Because if the Kildare County Board take whatever money is on offer, and we don't know that there's money on offer, but it's interesting that that was what Sean Kelly said would be the most likely tactic from Croke Park to try and negotiate their way out of this situation. If the Kildare County Board take that, they have completely sold the county out. It's just money. And instead of money, they now have a unified county, unified supporters, unified county board, unified management team. Anything is possible when you bring a county together the way this has happened. So they need to seize that moment and ride the momentum for the good of Kildare football, as opposed to, yeah, we'll take an extra coach for a year and then we won't be able to pay for them the next year. And meanwhile, we don't actually have enough money to fix St. Conleth's Park anyway.
Well, the money is like a hypothetical situation, although maybe the top brass are watching this morning and looking at Sean Kelly and thinking, oh, that's a good idea. Let's go along that route. But you're right. I mean, word would get out of what would happen here, and it isn't about the money for the Kildare GAA either. I mean, they're just trying to act on the behalf of Cian O'Neill and his team, you'd imagine, and that's it. Like, it isn't about money for them. It's not about money. Potentially, like the GAA will make the argument, it's not about money for them. It's about accommodating all supporters. But you know, what happens when you get more supporters into a ground?
Well, the other thing is, right, like, 100,000 people want to go to a Dublin Kerry All-Ireland football final, but only 80,000 of them can actually be fit. There's 20,000 people who you could sell tickets to, but you can't because there's no extra venue for it. Like, sometimes venues are a fixed size, and that's where you play the game because that's where you play the game. Like, you could have a sliding scale, 2/3 of all season ticket holders for Mayo get the opportunity to get a ticket for this. Kildare still gets the majority of tickets for the stadium once you factor in their number of season ticket holders. And like, there's clever ways around it if you want to find clever ways around it, or there's that we're going to Croker, it suits everybody, it's pretty handy. I wonder if Cavan looking at this going, maybe we could have kicked up a bit more of a stink on behalf of our team to, you know.
There is obviously Breffni Park isn't an option, but because of construction work going on at the site.
Skilling.
Yeah.
All right, look, we'll come back to this. Time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Newbridge or nowhere, Kildare's ultimatum. That's Lily White's on collision course with GAA over call to fix the Mayo clash for Croke Park. And also, don't mention the VAR. That's Cristiano Ronaldo looking a little bit concerned last night after his elbow/forearm to the cheek of one of the Iranian players resulted in the Iranian player rolling over and over and over and over and over and over and over to the point where the referee went over and had a look and went, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, that's definitely contact in the facial area. It's a yellow card.
Cop-out. A complete cop-out of a decision.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Like,
it was either nothing or it was a straight red.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Having looked at the replay, is that a straight red?
Yes, it is.
I'm not sure.
It is a straight red. Cristiano Ronaldo.
He's running.
Sent off.
He's running. He's like, get out of my way. And your man's like, oh, look, your chin, my elbow. I don't know. Anyway, World Cup's much better having Cristiano Ronaldo in it, right?
It's much better having batshit crazy referees. Like, he just lost the plot last night and was like, I'm going to screw this whole thing up. And it was amazing entertainment. VAR has made this thing sensational. Crap referees make entertainment.
Yeah,
and all the more crap referees.
VAR has been great, particularly Mark Lawrenson losing his shit over VAR.
He hates VAR so much.
Kildare, we will not play at Croke Park. Go on, Kildare. Paul Kane, that's the Times story this morning. Southgate, no let up for the Belgium game. So they're not going to rest players. They're not going to... we'll see if they're going to rest players, and we'll see. They'll know at that point who the potential in the last 16 is. So you've got to be clever and use your resources properly. Spain drawing all the resilience to keep spirited Morocco at bay. Spain, best team in the world at the moment, Dawn. Not sure about that.
Well, we'll see in a few weeks, won't we?
We will. GA and Kildare in standoff over venue. That was the bit where they spoke with Fergal McGill last night. The game has been fixed for 7 p.m. in Croke Park, and that is not going to change under any circumstances. And then obviously they have the GPA statement as well. But it was in one of those, it was either the Times or the Indo that had the line, if this hadn't been Tyrone, if this hadn't been Mayo, this game would have gone ahead in Newbridge, which literally means the competition is not fair, it's rigged in favour of the bigger teams who have bigger support. It's not a fair competition. And so either the competition is fair and that's the whole point, or we just want the big teams to get through. That's all. And look, I actually think that like a tiered championship with just the big teams in it would be great. Happy days. Let's get going to that. But just
that's not what it is.
Let's tell everybody we really only want the big teams to get through here.
I'm sure that Kildare GA will be invited to Croke Park in the coming days. Ger Donnelly then has the option, the Kildare GA chairman. Does he want to become Michael Collins or does he want to become Eamon De Valera? That's the key question here.
Well, I mean, come on.
It's on an exact par.
How many pieces of silver was it? 20 pieces of silver?
Well, that's what the conspirators say. I don't know. Is that the
30 pieces of silver was the price for which Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Not Devin Collins.
Well, I don't think there was any pieces of silver involved in that, was there? Well, we've kind of gone down a rabbit hole there, comparing the Kildare GAA County Board to the Collins situation. You're finished with your papers?
Yeah.
You are. The back page of the Herald is Bridge or Bust. Kildare refused to play Mayo in Croker as fixture crisis rages. Dubs may face World Cup clash. This is the one about the Super 8s, which clashes with the World Cup final on July 15th. Will they put the Dubs on up against the World Cup final, or will they put Kerry against Galway up against the World Cup final? That remains to be seen. The back page of the Mirror is Don't You Dare. Lily White stand firm in face of GAA warning. And Quaresma keeping Portugal on track, while Spain wanted that little bit more. A lot of kind of puns with the first three initials of people and countries there on the back page of the Mirror. On the back page of the Star then, It's bridge too far. GAA insist they'll award game to Mayo in event of a no-show, and fuming Kildare refusing to play home qualifier at Croke Park. The back page of the Sun then is Stand Your Ground. GAA dig in as Kildare turf it out. And a couple of the UK back pages then, which will obviously have no Kildare coverage. It is all the World Cup. Spain gained from VAR frenzy. Last gasp, Aspas flick wins group. Goal only given after offside review. Iran scored VAR penalty but missed late sitter. And Portugal through as Ronaldo escapes red. It was a crazy last 20 minutes. It was peak dual screening last night in Group B. And on the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section, Ronaldo lucky to escape red. VAR farce sees Portugal denied top spot, and captain survive a video decision after elbow clash.
Oh. Our antenna are up. Getting dispatched through satellite. Flash card. Come on in, John Duggan.
Kieran, good morning.
How are you?
I'm 2,000 miles away from the Kildare GA controversy, I can tell you that. I'm a long way away from it. So,
plenty of controversy where you are, though.
Yeah, I was, folks, get 2 televisions for your house, because you need to watch these things in split screen, which I did last night. Spain against Morocco and Portugal against Iran. It was great watching them on split screens, and the madness that ensued.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Portugal first. People mostly will have seen that game because it was on both BBC and RTE last night here. I'm not sure about Ronaldo. It was either nothing or it was a red card. It definitely didn't feel like it was a yellow card offence.
I would agree with that. I thought he clocked him, to be honest. I thought it was a red, personally. Fergus McFadden was one of the people on Twitter disagreeing with me. And it was just one of these. Enrique Caceres is the name of the referee, and just so much in that game. There's the fact that Quaresma scored a great goal. Then we had the penalty, which was a VAR overrule. He changed his mind. He overruled himself effectively after the VAR consultation. Ronaldo missed that. That could have huge consequences because they got to go to Sochi now to play Uruguay instead of playing Russia at home in terms of in Moscow. And that could have been an easy quarter-final route for Portugal. Now they got to go to Sochi to play Uruguay. And then I thought it was a red, lads. I thought it was a red. It's difficult. You can't say that they bottled it. I mean, the review happened, and the referee decided that it was a yellow. Gary Lineker, one of the people, saying that he didn't feel there was enough deliberate intent in Ronaldo's actions, but I thought he did them. And then you had the madness of Iran getting a penalty, which I think has caused the most controversy of the night. The Suarez couldn't get out of the way of the ball. Referee decided it wasn't a penalty. Then the VAR recommendation to review the incident appeared. He reviewed it, and then he gave it, and then they scored it. And then Mehdi Taremi nearly won it. Iran could have ended up topping the group. Instead, they go out of the World Cup. Spain qualify in terms of goals scored as group leaders. So it ends up that we have Spain and Portugal first and second, the way we would have said it before the tournament started, but without the complete madness of the last few days. Yeah,
I mean, if you actually printed that table a month ago, everybody would have, that's going to be the most boring group of all time. Look, Spain are going to win it, Portugal are second. In the meantime, you've had a Ronaldo hat-trick with a last-minute free kick against a Spain team who 48 hours had a different manager. It has been a fairly remarkable group all told, right down to the point where, as you say, Iran have a one-on-one where he just has to dink it over the keeper and history is being made.
Yeah, it was just fantastic. I couldn't... I do this, you know, that Simpsons thing where Homer Simpson's head explodes. It turns into a balloon and it just explodes. I counted 5 big incidents from the Iran-Portugal game. The Quaresma goal, the Ronaldo miss from the penalty, the Ronaldo red card, the penalty, the Suarez that wasn't, and then the miss. And then with Spain and Morocco, you have the Boutaïb goal, which was a mess between Ramos and Iniesta. Then you have a brilliant play from Iniesta for Isco to equalise. Then you have Gerard Piqué, lucky enough that he touched the ball, nearly going in 2-footed. And was lucky that he touched the ball, otherwise he should have gone. Then you Morocco, brilliant header to go ahead, and then you have that Aspas equaliser that is originally ruled as an offside and then ruled as a goal. So I think with the VAR, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of people are getting new to this brand new system. I think it's a good thing. I think we would have seen Neymar getting a penalty. He shouldn't have got one the other day, and of course the hand of history would have changed for Irish people. The hand of Henry would not have got through VAR, and ultimately it is only a recommendation. It's only a video replay, and it's up to the referee. The referee's decision is the final. The referee has to instigate what Nordine Amrabat called was bull. I don't know if people saw that viral after the Morocco-Spain game. He just said VAR is bull. But it's up to the referee. Bad referees are bad referees. But I suppose the thing about it is referees are so used, lads, to deciding things in an instant that they're now second-guessing themselves. And I'm wondering, is that causing them a huge amount of confusion internally? That once they're almost, I wonder, just because the VAR says you need to look at this again, are they thinking, well, was my original decision correct? And I think that's probably the conflict within referees' minds at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's definitely human error, isn't it, rather than the actual computer's errors. Some tweaking does need to be made. Like they were talking on the RTE panel last night that it was a tournament too soon for all of this, but ultimately this is common sense. You and I could have made the correct decision on that handball last night. Like at what training do you need to give to referees to actually say, listen, this is how you make a pretty blatant handball call that isn't, and make it correctly? It just doesn't seem that the fine tweaking that's required is really fine tweaking. It's a systems failure almost in the brain of a referee.
It's 33 cameras they have, the four referees, Kalina's team. But I do think that generally incidents in football, which is an extremely fast-moving game, are few and far between. Massive incidents are few and far between in the history of football. We can count them maybe on two hands. Really, really big incidents. And I think that referees, what almost needs to be said to them, it's not about the technology, it's about backing themselves. Just because it's gone for a review for two reasons. The reasons are a clear and obvious error and a serious missed incident. Just because somebody says you might need to have a look at that again doesn't mean the original decision was incorrect. And I think that's where we're having referees that are under pressure, especially with footballers of all people, who can ham it up and demand this or demand that in really pressurised situations where, as I said, Iran could have gone through, Portugal could have gone out, Portugal could have topped the group, and now we have the way we thought it would be at the outset. But I do think that just as much as Messi's penalty miss was scrutinised, I think Ronaldo's will be hidden amid all the controversy, but it could really cost Portugal in terms of the tournament progression.
Because you fancy Uruguay now much more after the quality of their performance.
Yeah, they haven't conceded a goal yet, lads. They were on the front foot against Russia, who were Smolnikov's dismissal didn't help matters. But by that stage, I think Uruguay were 2-0 up. Suarez with a good free kick. Then we got an own goal. Cheryshev put the ball into his own net after the great 2 games he'd had. And then Cavani got off the mark, which is important for him. So Russia completely second best, physically, out-battled. And, just poor. I remember Juba missing an absolute, slicing the ball to the corner flag at one stage. And I can see Uruguay beating Portugal. I really can. I think Morocco are the unlucky team of that group. They were very unlucky against Iran. They should have beaten Portugal, and they arguably could have won last night's game as well. So Morocco can hold their heads high out of this World Cup. But I thought Portugal, watching last night, once again, were pretty ordinary in a frenetic game. So that's the way I kind of see it. But look, from Spain's perspective, they're going to pass Russia out of this World Cup in Moscow on Sunday. They're just going to pass them to death. And I think that
Portugal and Uruguay is going to be the nastiest, cheatiest game in the history of, since the first World Cup. I think there was a couple of fairly dodgy games in that one.
It's going to be was it the 54 seconds it took in 1986 for the Uruguay player to be sent off against Scotland? I think it might be more for Portugal's side than Uruguay's side, to be honest. Although there was a lot in the Morocco were really playing on the edge against Spain last night. There was a lot of nasty challenges for Morocco against Spain. So, yeah, I'd fancy Uruguay, I have to say, having seen Portugal in the flesh and then seeing them last night again. And now tonight. It's all about Argentina, the soap opera. I was watching social media, really, really funny. They were analysing in Argentinian television the warm-ups of Messi and Maradona and comparing the warm-ups of the two of them and the body language within the warm-ups. And the warm-up they were showing of Maradona was the classic one that everybody knows, the Live is Life one from Napoli, which is probably the best warm-up of all time. And they're comparing that with Messi's normal warm-up for one of the matches against Croatia or Iceland, and that was funny. And you've had minute silences in Argentina, and now there's talk that Aguero was part of a internal revolt against the coach Sampaoli, and apparently he's going to be dropped for the match this evening. They're going to change the system again for 4-4-2. If they beat Nigeria and Iceland fail to beat Croatia, Argentina, despite all of this madness, will still go through. And the other group looks pretty straightforward. If France and Denmark draw, they'll both go through with France's group winners. Paul Pogba and Blaise Matuidi, both on yellow cards. And that might mean that Deschamps says, we're not going to start the players, because yellow cards, they're cumulative. They get wiped after the quarterfinals. So if you get 2 yellows, you'll miss a match.
I can't see a way for Argentina to do it tonight. I just think it's too much. It's too late. They've screwed up so much. They're so riven with dysfunction that this is the swan song tonight, that we are tuning in to watch the end of Leo Messi's international career, and it ends in failure.
I would agree with you. I think it is too much. I think it's too much of a mountain. If the Croatia game hadn't happened and all the crazy changes when he changed from 4-2-3-1 to 4-3-3, he brought players in. He brought 3 players in. He's now. I think the talk is he's going to bring Di Maria and Banega back into the team. But if they weren't good enough to play against Croatia, why are they good enough now? Of course, the door has been opened by the Nigeria win over Iceland, but Nigeria only need a draw. Ahmed Musa scored now 4 goals in 2 World Cup games. And they can just sit back. Now, they're more of a team that would probably like to attack more, but I think, I would agree with you. I think there's just too much dysfunction, even for Messi to... and he hasn't shown any inclination of it, grabbing the ball in the centre circle and owning the ball for 90 minutes. Not the way he plays. Don't think it's going to happen. And look, it's another split screen moment tonight. It's not going to be about Croatia and Iceland. I can't really see Iceland getting out of that. Anything out of that? They 22% possession against Argentina, only 39% possession against Nigeria. And despite all the changes Croatia are expected to make with the amount of yellow cards they have, including Rakitic, I can see this all about being the Argentina-Nigeria game, but I can't see it, lads. I think the other group is much more straightforward. I think France and Denmark will go through.
Yeah, Denmark and France, that's 3 o'clock, both of those games. It's Australia who kind of lag a little bit behind. They're 3 points behind Denmark. They'll need Denmark to lose, and they'll need to win themselves to make the goal difference even. And then when you look at the goals scored, then Australia might actually pass them out if that's the case. But I guess from the point you're trying to make there about France and the yellow cards, they're going to be a weakened side. It's going to be quite straightforward in that, you'd imagine. And also as well, when you kind of look at the overall picture now, when you look at Group C and you look at Group D, the possibility here is a France versus Nigeria last 16. But the thing is, if Lionel Messi and Argentina manage to cause a miracle tonight, although it's not quite a miracle, they come up against France in the last 16. And I know it's been completely stereotypical here, John, but it is France. France have had a history of, I guess, not being fully coherent when it really matters in a World Cup in recent years. And would you be overly surprised if the beast that is Lionel Messi created some sort of miraculous moment where he managed to navigate his way to a quarter-final? I'm not saying that they're going to go all the way, because that's clearly not going to happen, but I just feel that there is one more incredible story left in this World Cup in the early phases, and Messi and Argentina could be that one.
Well, after last night, there could be 3 or 4 more incredible stories in the group phases alone. I know what you're saying, but I just think on the basis of what we've seen, I think France will only improve. I think they'll only improve after their opening couple of matches, and they have a degree of cohesion, a much better degree of cohesion than Argentina do. So if Argentina had been unlucky, I thought they played reasonably well against Iceland, but the amount of panic that set in after that game, after they failed to win, wouldn't strike me with any kind of confidence about this evening and beyond. And I think even if they do play France, it's not like 1990 when Argentina played Brazil and Maradona shocked the world with this brilliant play for Canigia's goal, and Brazil were expected to go through comfortably. And it's not 2010 either, when France were infighting in South Africa and they were melting down under Raymond Domenech. I don't think France are in that position at all. I think France will be in the last 4. So know what you're saying. I think there could be one big push, but I think that's I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I think we're hoping for that. But I think it's head and heart stuff, and I think the head will have to say that with the internal strife in Argentina, and with the fact that Messi is almost checked out. And I'll even talk with Aguero and Messi, who are best pals. If Aguero isn't in the team, how's that going to... Is Messi, in a way, in agreement with Aguero about the coach?
Totally.
That would... Is there a hidden hand there? Once again, I'll be fascinated to see Lionel Messi's body language this evening, because you're going to know after 10 or 15 minutes where his head is at, and if he's already thinking about sunny beaches.
John, you're at Denmark, France. Give us your prediction for that one tonight.
A 1-1 draw. I think it'll be a draw, but France has to be careful because they don't want to, just because they're through, they don't want to be in any way complacent. Yusuf Poulsen's going to miss the match. He's got 2 yellow cards already. William Kvist is out for Denmark, but Denmark, we know ourselves, are better than some of their parts. I think it'll be a draw, but France just have to avoid complacency. I think that's the big thing, because they do want to top the group. They don't want to end up in the last 16 match against Croatia.
Good stuff, JD. Thanks a million.
All right, lads, take care.
John Duggan with us this morning, live from Russia, where the World Cup is, I would say, lit.
Yeah, it's certainly happening. Everything is happening.
It's been great, I think. There was a bit of a wobble in the middle of towards the end of the first round of group games, but then since then there's been incidents, great goals, last minute winners, like a bit of close enough to shocks. It has all of the perfect things that you want for a World Cup.
Yeah, like even some of the amazing moments from last night are going to get overshadowed by the madness of the last 20 minutes. Like Sergio Ramos almost facing karma in the face with his error that led to Morocco's opener yesterday was a particularly pleasurable moment. The Iranian keeper not being able to catch a cross but being able to save a Cristiano Ronaldo penalty was one of the turnarounds of the tournament for me. They're the sort of moments that we're going to forget, even in the context of last night, let alone the tournament. The
Saudi Arabian Egypt match, did you see the 40-something-year-old keeper saving a penalty on that one?
Yeah, and
Salah with a beautiful goal as well.
And they lost. With a
last-minute winner.
With a last-minute winner.
It's like completely meaningless, but like when even the crappy, meaningless games aren't 0-0 draws, something's going right. So the Twitter handle for this guy is at Kildare GAA 2018, and he's wearing his green Kildare jersey, picture of it, a selfie. I proudly wore this through Dublin on the way into work, listening to Off the Ball AM. Plenty of comments and most support. I did get called a Kildare bollocks, but sure, I get called that every day. Hashtag Newbridge or nothing. Hashtag GAA. Hashtag Kildare GAA. So, I don't know. It feels to me like there is a groundswell of opinion from the Kildare supporters pushing Kildare and the county board to do the right thing by the team, by the management, and by everybody in Kildare GAA, and that is not to play in Croke Park and not to take whatever potential offer is on the table, either now or down the line, and to go the full nuclear option and to see where that takes us. Sky have been on to say that Sky has introduced red button functionality to cater for all eventualities, including extra time for when we have double headers on our GAA coverage. Sky has absolutely no influence on the selection of venues for live televised matches. So that was their statement in connection with some of the stuff that was being thrown their direction over the last 24 hours or so. Ultimately, this feels like it's a GAA decision that the CCCC decided Kildare didn't nominate somewhere, we're picking for them, we're going to Croke Park, and then didn't actually think that entirely through, didn't wonder, communication hasn't been great here. Kildare didn't nominate something, maybe there's something brewing there. Wonder what could be brewing? No. There was not enough curiosity on their part, and it just seems like Ned Quinn was kind of rowing back from what had been said in the papers this morning. So look, a lot of confusion, I would say, persists with the situation.
Yeah, it seems that we don't know when it's going to be sorted out. Like if there's going to be some sort of mediation on it, it needs to happen this afternoon. There needs to be a solution found relatively soon. There's no reason I'm putting this thing off for the next 24 hours, and it just seemed that there was kind of a little bit of a not confusion, but just a lack of knowledge when it came to when is this going to develop into a concrete conversation, because you would have thought that a couple of phones would have been picked up last night, no?
Yeah.
It's like...
Maybe, I'm sure it has, right?
Well, Ned Quinn seems to have no idea when this might get resolved or when the next step happens.
Like if you're the DG or the president, though, you're trying to keep your circle pretty tight, and I'm sure you're telling everybody who needs to know exactly what's going on, but when a deal is done, you'll tell everybody the deal is done, as opposed to, oh, we're nearly there, no?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Like, maybe they're sitting down as we speak, and maybe we'll have a statement by this afternoon. It is a good point, though, in general, that maybe
if the game is in Croke Park, what kind of Kildare team is going to show up? We don't have the backing of our county board. We've betrayed our fans. That's a walkover for me, for Mayo, in real terms at that point, right?
Even if they do show up.
Like, if Kildare...
Talk out.
If now, after having made the statement and gone on the news and said we're not going, then they go, it's like, well, that's a 20-point win.
Yeah, easily.
How do you get your morale back as a group?
I honestly believe that if this game is on in Croke Park on Saturday, Kildare will not be there. I really do believe we're going to have a situation like Barney Rock in 78? When you
83?
Oh, right.
87? 87.
I don't know. Wow, okay. I got my numbers mixed up there.
What did you say, 70 what?
It's 78. It's a bit off.
Barney's like, what are you doing? I was 12.
I genuinely believe that'll be the case. And I'm not sure which is set to be the curtain raiser. Is it Cavan? Is it the Cavan game?
Yeah.
So there'll just be this tantalising sense of even the Cavan supporters like
the warm up, every kick.
What's going to happen? Will any team come to warm out and then to come to warm up? Like, who knows? Like, I saw somebody tweeting last night that potentially this is just all a master stroke from Cian O'Neill. That Kildare will show up in Croke Park and Mayo will show up in Newbridge and it'll be a walkover for Kildare. That would be hilarious.
So they're telling something else to the players. God, I hope that's not the case. Right, OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Maura Trosney-Kelly caught up with Ireland's Sarah Woods and Fiona O'Dwyer ahead of the clash with Norway tonight in the FIBA Women's European Championship for small countries at the Mardyke Arena in UCC.
We've been working all week for this game, building up, and I think just to get started in the tournament, everyone's really dying to get the first game under their belt.
Yeah, I think it's exciting as well. Norway haven't really been on the international scene in the last 4 to 5 years, so we don't know much about them. We did a bit of video analysis there with Mark and Francis, our two coaches, and we watched a few of their club games. So that was good, but again, actually seeing them play will be really, really interesting. We've been training pretty much every single weekend since April. So for this week to actually be here, I think we're ready, and we're ready. We're really prepared
Absolutely.
as well.
Having that green jersey on is just an even bigger sign that, like, you know, I am Irish, my roots are Irish, and wearing it is such an honour.
And it's different than Gaelic and hurling because they can't get to this level. So I think that's what's so special about basketball. We finish our season in March, and to have a break from March to September, it's really hard to get better, and that's what you can aspire to play for this team, and you're only improving every single year. I think we're really, really prepared, and I don't think there's anything else, any regrets in our preparation that we've done so far, and we're all really going in for it, and we all know there is expectation on us, almost put on by ourselves, but we want to do Cork and Ireland as proud as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so to have anybody supporting us, especially, I think people are underestimating our first game against Norway. That'd be huge to have a crowd there, because essentially if we beat Norway, that's a huge stepping stone to get to the semi-final playoffs.
Absolutely. And just having the whole house behind you is just, it changes the atmosphere of the game. It kind of helps the momentum swing in your favour when a team has to step out into floor and everyone's roaring against them. Like, it does take an effect on them. So
there's a bit more expectation when you walk in with an Irish jersey that nobody has a right to play for Ireland, that we need to go out there and do the country proud, and we've trained as hard as we can, and that's all we're going to try to do, go out there and play as best we can.
Yeah, so get out and support them. Throw-in is at 6:15. Tickets are available to buy online via eventbrite.ie. It's 15 quid for adults, €10 for students or OAPs, and €5 for the under-16s. You can log on to basketballireland.ie for more details, and it's great to see the Irish international basketball teams back on the stage after a fairly long period in the wilderness. And so congratulations to everybody involved in getting that back up and running. That's pretty much all we have in terms of those stories. I'm kind of talked that out now, I think.
There's plenty more to say.
Is there?
No, there.
I feel like we've missed some stuff.
I don't. I think every little inch of this patch has been trod upon at this point. Kind of like Newbridge will be on Saturday evening, completely packed out. I feel like there's a health and safety problem in my head because I've kind of filled out the idea of this discussion so much.
There is the bang of FIFA off a potential money deal, right?
Potential is the key word there. There is no suggestion that this will happen. I would be surprised by the gumption of both parties to engage in a deal like that. But maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Maybe I'm too.
Money fixes everything. We know. Money fixes everything.
Well,
just how much?
That would lead to
€1 million.
That would change. That would shift the goalpost from Kildare GAA versus the GAA to Kildare footballers versus Kildare GAA. And then you would have chapter 2 in the saga.
Yeah. But I just hope that the team feel the power that they have and that they respond to what Cian O'Neill did last night, because I thought what he did was great. You know, as a supporter of the team, that's exactly what you want. You want the manager to be clear-headed and, you know, full hearts, can't lose. But it just felt that way. It was like, okay, yeah, I'll captain my captain, go for it.
Yeah, it was impressive. That's the sort of person that you want leading your team at this moment. And again, like, he's not budging. The players are not budging. Even if Kildare GAA kind of cave, the players in the squad, from what I've seen, from that impassioned speech from Cian O'Neill last night, Kildare are not budging on this. There's only one side that's going to fall down if this game is going to be played, and that is going to be the GAA.
And that's not going to happen either, right?
Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised. Here. I think there is a light.
That'd be great.
I think there's a light possibility this game happens in Newbridge. But at the same time, though,
that would be a sea change, and that would be like, okay, fair enough. We've listened to what's going on, and we are still a democratic organisation. And that talk of us being a democracy is not just nonsense.
But then, what about their health and safety excuse? Like, is that just an excuse? Then is that just words? Like, it's if they do cave.
Well, what was the health and safety excuse? That there might be a row outside between people who have tickets who normally get tickets?
Yes.
I mean, like, do you know?
Have you ever seen that at a granted, I've never been to a game where there's a capacity of 9,000 people and there might...
That's a hypothetical.
It's a huge hypothetical. Like, do you really think Mayo people are going to wake up and drive all the way over to Kildare on Saturday morning without tickets?
Start a fight with a Kildare fan because they've got tickets.
Yeah, the Lily Whites. Oh, those damn Lily Whites. I hate them.
I mean, yeah, but not even on the radar for the last... since Geezer.
All I'll say is the Mayo fans need to save their fighting for Killarney.
Right. Bristol's Ian Madigan stopped by yesterday. He had a lot to say. Have a look. All right, I'm delighted to say we've got Ian Madigan here with us, looking fresh on his summer holidays. Are you actually on your summer holidays at the moment?
Officially on a break. I've already done 4 weeks of pre-season, so Pat has kindly given us 2 weeks of our own time now. We've been told specifically we've got to stay in shape, but I am on a break.
2 weeks isn't very long. Like, it's not like the kind of really long off-season that you would expect from people. And
no, from being in the championship, we finished our season at the end of April, so we had 4 weeks off through May, and then came back in at the end of May and did a 4-week training block, and now we've 2 weeks off, back in for another 3-week training block, another week off, and then that will see us into pre-season games and the season then. Okay,
you're putting your time off to good use. You're in Dublin for the launch of a new company tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah, so I was previously involved with a company called Fantasy Rugger, which was online gaming platform for, you'd pick your team and compete against your friends and that kind of thing. That company got sold or bought over by a company called Rugby Pass, and now we've gone a different avenue, and with the new GDPR regulations being brought in, over the last year we've been building a product to give companies a tool to make them GDPR compliant. And ultimately, with the new GDPR regulations, you've got to be, data compliant, and we're looking to give customers back control of their data via a data gateway tool. So we're doing a launch tomorrow night, and the company's now live. It's called Data Ships.
When did you decide that you needed to do all this stuff while the rugby career was going on? Because I know there's some people, we talk to some sports people who are like, I don't want to think about anything because I just want to make sure that I'm focused, and I would always feel like I was distracting myself. And then other people are like, I need to be distracted because otherwise I'll just think about it the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you have that balance. And when I look back on previous years of my career, I probably didn't. I would have been like the guy who was just focused and thinking, what am I doing right now to be a better rugby player? And you can't do that for 24 hours in the day because you'll just burn out. So I suppose being surrounded with the likes of Jamie Heaslip and Owen Redden and Shane Jennings, you'd always hear of them doing, a business degree or a master's or getting work experience during the summer, and hearing about different companies that they might be involved in. And I suppose I was always keeping my eye out for opportunities to get involved in. And I was lucky I was approached by two guys in school to get involved with this company initially, and they were always in classes a few ahead of me in school, so I knew that they were smart guys, and just got involved on a low level initially, and it's just grown over the last 3 or 4 years, and something that I've really enjoyed.
Does it help you to be a better rugby player? Like, is that the other side of this, that it legitimately frees up your mind from worrying a little bit about, like, you know, we all know rugby is a contact sport, and so many of your peers end up finishing early because of injury, that at least you're thinking, okay, well, I don't really have to worry too much about that. I'm starting to do stuff, and when I need to put my full time into it, I will. But in the meantime, actually, I can just concentrate on this now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important to have that focus outside of rugby as well. And you know, I know the rugby's not gonna last forever, and the better I am prepared during my career for when that day comes, the easier the transition is going to be post rugby.
Yeah. What's Pat Lam like? Obviously, that's the other kind of major Irish aspect of what's going on with you guys at Bristol at the moment. We obviously really felt like he was a huge loss to the Irish coaching ticket and the setup, and especially given that David Yusufor has made it pretty clear that you need to be in that setup if you're going to be an Ireland coach into the future. You guys are clearly benefiting from that at the moment. Yeah,
Pat's a brilliant coach. You know, the foundation of what he does is he's an extremely hard worker. You know, he's first in the mornings, last out in the evenings. He's our director of rugby, but he's very much in control of all aspects. So he works very closely with our defence coach, our attack coach. You know, even like he keeps a very close eye on our back sessions. He's very much got his finger on the pulse across the board. I suppose it's what he does consistently is what makes him a great coach. You know, he's extremely diligent in the same way that Joe Schmidt is. You know, he'll just, if he sees something, he'll say it, and you know that can be very powerful over a long period of time.
Because it seems to be, it's interesting when you say that, because there seems to be kind of an interesting split at the moment between coaching that involves surrounding yourself with great people, or people like Pat Lam. From what you're saying, it sounds like he's the one who's going to oversee it all and he'll have a hand in every different part of it. Whereas if you look at Leinster right now, it seems that Leo Cullen has kind of given out his work a little bit more. He's hired well. He's brought in Stuart Lancaster, Felipe Contepomi obviously this week as well. And it seems that there is a bit of a contrast there.
Yeah. You know, I think when you look in the UK, you see there's different coaching structures across the board, and even in Ireland now you're seeing different coaching structures in the province. So you could have a director of rugby who sits at the top and doesn't actually coach, but just delegates to the other coaches and selects the team. But Pat, you know, that's not Pat's style. He's very much a coach. So he's out there on the field every day, and yeah, look, you know, that suits him. But I think depending on your resources, you can go with a different, you know, different technique, and have someone at the top who's, you know, able to delegate, and coaches are presenting to him what they intend to do with the players every day, and that can be very powerful as well.
Is his style of play at Bristol the same as it would have been at Connacht? Like, is that what he does? He wants the team to play, and is it the same kind of pods, that system that he would have had, or has he changed depending on the resources?
It's definitely evolved again. Like with Pat, you know, his attacking philosophy is, you know, we want to go either through a team, around a team, or over a team. So it's ultimately just finding a way to win, really. The way he has the team set up is very structured, and it's very nice as an out half to play in that structure, because everyone's in the right position. Because he's extremely diligent in how he coaches and how he does his video sessions, to the extent that if you're, you know, a yard or a foot out of place, or a yard too deep, a yard too flat, you know, he'll say it to you and he'll get you in the right position. And you know, when you're doing that over a period of, you know, a year, 2 years, it comes into something, you know, very structured.
How do you describe it? Is it still the width of the pitch? And
yeah. So it is very much a numbers game with Pat as well. You know, he's for example, he'll look to trap the opposition front row and try and get mismatches with our back three against their front row or front five. The system we're playing at the moment is 1-3-3-1, so you've got a back row on each edge, and their main role is to maintain the width. So if they're not doing it, our wingers will do it for us. And similar, if there's 4 people in the backfield, his philosophy is there has to be space in the front line. So, you know, we'd look to run, whereas if there's only 1 in the backfield or 2 in the backfield, then there should be space for crossfield kicks or to find grass, you know, in the back. And that is kind of his theme for his entire game plan. So, you know, a large part of my role would be getting my head up and counting, oh, there's only 3 on the short side there, or it's a midfield ruck, they've got 7 on one side and 4 on the other side, we've got to get over there, you know, and exploit that with with one of the plays that you'd have practiced in training.
Presumably your teammates get good at signalling that to you as well.
Exactly.
And you're trying to tell them, shut up, I can see it. But don't shout it.
Yeah, a large part of how my role works is really executing what my teammates see. So, if you're at centre or full back, you're not as close to the ball. You have much better vision of it all.
Yeah.
So, they're then telling me, for example, top right is free for a kick, or there's only 3 out here, and calling in a specific play for that.
Has that the way it's always been in your career, or are you always open to the idea of other people giving you the instructions, or do you rather actually just take the game by the scruff of the neck and say to yourself and to the teammates, I'm the game manager here and I can see what's going on and I'm going to execute it?
No, it certainly hasn't been for all my career. It wasn't that way in France. It was probably quite similar with Joe. Joe would have the team set up, very well, and there'd be information getting fed into you, and I suppose majority of out halves will tell you it's they're at their best when they're just being told what to execute, and the reading of the game is when you're just trusting your instincts. So you're getting your head up and going, oh, they're short there, and you're just trusting your instinct, kicking the ball into the corner, or seeing that they're short on the edge of the line and throwing out a miss pass, or whatever it might be. What's a lot tougher is when you're not getting any information into you, or a call is sent into you, and you look out to execute, and you see a completely different picture to what you might have seen when the call was called previously. So you're kind of going, where do I throw this pass? He seems to be way too wide or way too deep. And a good coach will be diligent enough to go through, training sessions and games and let guys know this is where you need to stand for this move to work as best as possible. So I think he can look very indecisive when the structure around you is poor.
Yeah.
Because you're just trying to read the game off the cuff, I suppose.
That structure is really, it's almost less for you in some ways as well, in that structure is to inform everybody else what they're supposed to be doing, and then give you the freedom within that to go, okay, there is something on here or there isn't.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's very good for, for example, our front five. He really manages them well. He's extremely strategic in the sense that he doesn't want them having to cover the whole field. So they'll mainly work between the 15s.
Right.
And it allows them to get their quality efforts in there, as opposed to a scrum being in the 5 metre line and they end up over in a wide ruck on the far 5 metre line, and then they're chasing back again, and suddenly the ball gets turned over and they're absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
So
they're power athletes and you want to be able to use them.
Exactly.
And so this season has been the best season in terms of your own skill set and all that. That's the other aspect of his coaching that everybody talks about. I remember Gavin Duffy saying he made them all get rugby balls and live with them when he first came over, and I thought, this is all bollocks. And then a couple of weeks later they were like, oh, we're not dropping any passes anymore, this is funny.
Yeah, I think what definitely worked in our advantage as well, Pat was coming into a new team, and if we were in the Premiership last year, we would have had probably 2 months to prepare for the Premiership. And it would have been a bit of a rush job, in the sense that you're trying to get all your structures in place. How you set up for a restart, defence, attack, philosophy, getting to know him as a person. He's learning, finding out what all the players are capable of, their strengths and that kind of thing. And it definitely would have been a rush. And you can't get off to a slow start in the Premiership, especially with the way relegation is. Whereas being in the Championship for the year, it allowed him to just build it slowly, I guess, and build a really strong foundation. And what I've seen now over the last kind of few months is he's just adding layers to that now. And I think there's going to be quite a bit more to come now.
Do you feel like you're a better player?
Do I feel like I'm a better player off the back of coaching?
Yeah,
yeah, definitely, yeah. I think when you get surrounded by a new coach and new players, you're going to start learning, new tools to add to your game. And while France wasn't, a brilliant rugby experience, I still learned a lot over there off other players. A different rugby culture, how the French can get up for a game, and ultimately there's far more than one way to win a game, and I certainly learned that over there.
The distance from the French experience now, what are the things that you can take from it, and what went wrong in retrospect?
It's hard to pinpoint on one thing. I was obviously responsible for it not going well as well. It's not a blame game. I certainly don't want to go down that route. I went over there and got off to a good start. We were coming, I think, in the top 4 after 6 or 7 games, or 8 games, I think it was. And I think we won our first 3 or 4 games. But I never felt that we had something that was sustainable there. This game plan this could see us into the playoffs of the top 14.
Yeah.
So I suppose that was one part of it.
Do you have a relationship with the coaches at that point where you can go, can we try some other things here? Is there a room for us to grow?
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't really have over there. It wasn't what I'd hoped to be, in the sense that you could go into the head coach and talk through. He'd bounce ideas off you, or you give your opinion of exactly what you think the team needs from a player's perspective, and get his view on what he thinks the team needs from a coaching perspective. What you think is working well, or the team's work-ons as such. There wasn't really an open dialogue over there. It was very much just going week to week. And that's
a culture shock after Leinster, I presume, is it?
Yeah, big time. If there's not a grand plan there, you're going to come undone pretty quickly, because teams will figure out, oh well, this is how that team beat them 2 weeks ago. Let's just do that again. And if you're not evolving as a team and improving week on week, then you're going to keep losing.
Yeah.
Was there any big differences, or was there any surprise on your part by any of the basics, even in diet or anything like that? Because Ronan O'Gara often talks about going into the racing setup, and he was absolutely shocked with how behind they were in terms of the stuff that was available to them in the canteen, for example.
Yeah, I suppose they do things differently over there, and you can't say everything they do is wrong. Some of the stuff they do is brilliant. As pure athletes, the French are incredible athletes naturally. Compared to what we have, just from population, gives them a massive advantage. You're going to have big fast guys if you've got 60 million plus people, as opposed to scrambling with their 4 million.
In the shallow gene pool in Ireland.
Yeah, so you've got guys that are really fast, really fit, but their focus is different. They don't have as big a focus on the weights in the gym. They're probably a bit more laid back on the diet side. But saying that, there'd still be guys who'd be extremely professional over there. But it's just, I suppose, more of a mix. But that wasn't the reason why it didn't work out for me over there. It was more just, it was tough not having a good relationship with the coach, not really having not feeling like the club had a direction that they were travelling in. And then I suppose it was just the management of my own body. The training over there was just so inconsistent. You could go in there one day and cover 10 kilometres, and then the following day be back down to 2 or 3, and then be back up. You could be on the pitch for 2 or 3 hours, and training with windows of real intensity, and then a big drop off, training with intensity and a big drop off. And I think over time that just took its toll on my body a bit.
Yeah. Because just chatting to me beforehand, you were kind of just talking a little bit about how this pre-season that you were talking about with Bristol is something that you're really glad you've had, because it gives you the opportunity then to go into the Premiership confident that you've got that work done and that you're going to be able to maintain your form over the course of the whole season. Yeah, big time. The pre-season is very much your foundation for the year. And if you're going into a pre-season injury-free and you can get a block of 2 or 3 months of really good weights and conditioning in, that will see you through a large part of the season. And it means that during the season you're just doing maintenance work. So all you really need is 1 lower body session and 2 upper body sessions a week, and that will see you through. And then maybe when you get a week off or 2 weeks off in the season, you can push again and make a small bit of gains. Yeah. But ultimately, in the season, you're really looking just to maintain. But it's in those pre-season blocks that you need to get your fitness up, your lower body strength up. And if you don't have that in pre-season, you're going to really struggle when it gets to November, December, and the body starts to fatigue and the mind is getting fatigued. You can't just kind of go, I'm going to start training harder now, because you've got a game coming every Saturday. Yeah. It's going to be very, very tough. The out half position is one that we've seen players be able to do into their mid to late 30s at club level. So you've got, you're kind of entering the sweet spot of your career now, where you have all that experience behind you. You've got the bunch of different rugby environments. You're a seasoned international, and you fully understand exactly what you need to do to put yourself in a position to succeed. So what are your own personal goals? Like what do you want to do? What do you want to do with the rest of your rugby career?
My number one goal is still to play for Ireland. It always has been. Like when I left Leinster, it was to become a better out half, to be able to perform for Ireland, and that is no different. And what I'm working on with Pat over in Bristol is to be the best rugby player I can be for the team in Bristol, and my role over there is to do that. And if I'm doing that really well in the Premiership next year, obviously selection's out of my hands, but it'd still be my ultimate goal to come back and play for Ireland.
Does that mean coming back to Ireland at some point and play within the system? Like, I know Pat Lam was saying you've just signed a long-term deal with Bristol, so obviously for the foreseeable future, for the next couple of seasons, that's off the cards. But to put yourself in a position where, like, the Irish provinces are going, we really need to get this guy over here. Yeah, and that's ultimately over to me. I need to be playing really, really well for them to be looking at me going, we need that guy in our team. So, I've had a long road over the last 3 years. It's been pretty frustrating for me. I had a year after the World Cup where Johnny was back in Leinster and I was, mainly sitting on the bench. Then went to France, and the majority of that year was pretty frustrating, especially when I announced mid-season that I was, going to be moving on. I was very much pushed to the side then, and then a year in the championship as well. So I've been sitting on that for the last 3 years, and I'm now in a situation where I've got a great coach in a really good team, one that I feel really comfortable in. So I feel like it's teed up for me now this year. So it's just about taking that opportunity and playing as best as I can.
What are you feeling when you're watching Leinster and Ireland and watching them succeed so wildly?
Happiness. It was tough initially when I was first away from the Leinster team with the Irish team, and you're looking in and you're just used to being a part of that. You're just kind of watching. You're just kind of feeling a bit numb, I suppose. You're certainly not cheering the other team on or anything like that. But then as time goes on, I'm still a big Leinster supporter, and grew up supporting the team, and obviously so passionate about Ireland. So I watch the games, cheer the guys on, and be texting them before the games, wish them the best of luck, and it's great to see Leinster and Ireland getting the success they did this year, and it was well deserved.
It's funny because Sexton's obviously at some point in the next couple of years going to be coming to the natural end of his career, and at that point there's going to be the incumbent number 2 at Leinster. There's obviously the Joey Carbery situation, and clearly there'll be a role there for somebody else to come in and fulfil. And if you are the best out half who is Irish qualified over the next couple of years, you can see that being a fairly natural thing that happens. But that would also, to be able even to be thinking like that or talking like that, that's like it's wishing away your life to a point where you won't actually be able to fulfil it. So there's that old awful sports cliche of making sure that you're doing the business right now is something you've got to look after. So it's a weird situation to be in a bit.
Yeah,
which would all be fixed if they would just pick people who played in England and France.
They still might. I think for me it's very much, as you said, living in the now and doing as best as I can with the current hand that I've been dealt. I made the decision to leave Leinster, and I'll stand by that, and I've no regrets.
Were you ever tempted to join one of the other Irish provinces at that point, or did you feel like you had to go away?
No, I definitely I looked at it and weighed it up. At the time, I thought the best opportunity for me was in Bordeaux. And that decision didn't work out, but I don't regret going over. It's something I learned a huge amount from, but I don't look back on and going, I wish I'd gone to this province, or I wish I'd gone to the UK.
Sexton went to Racing, it didn't work out, but it was still a really important thing for him to do in his career.
Yeah, so, am I a better player for it? Am I, a better person for it? I think I am. So, it was a good decision. And I think, as a professional sports person, you've got to view the hand that you're dealt at the time and go, look, these are my different options. I think that's the best one for me. And you talk to the people who you trust, and they give you the best advice they can, and you just got to go with that. And then there's no looking back after that.
Yeah.
There's only one of you, and you can't go back in time. So for me at the moment, I'm loving it in Bristol, and because I'd had that kind of long road to get into this situation with a good coach, a good team in the Premiership, not having to move again, I was pretty set on staying there.
Yeah, and being first choice helps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I know he's a competitor of yours, really, ultimately, but what advice would you have then for Joey Carberry at this point? Because, there's talk about him at some point in the future going back as well, but he can't think like that, and Munster can't think like that, so he's just got to go down there and go, this is my team now, I don't play for that other team.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think it's going to be... you can't be thinking, potentially coming back. Munster are now his team, and he's got to be fully 100% committed to that. And if he's thinking any other way, then there's a good chance it would fail. And from knowing Joey, he'll be all hands on deck there. And the advice you have for him is just go down there, train hard, and he's a fantastic player. And there's no doubt he'll make it a success down there. Yeah,
the future situation at Leinster, where there are so many players coming through at the same time, it is going to be very cutthroat, and we are going to end up with a load of Leinster's players playing in Connacht and Ulster and Munster and in England. That's just what's going to happen because the schools are producing so many good players.
Yeah, it's just so competitive now. You look at the academy, it's just a queue of guys coming through. Like the Leinster A team played Bristol in the B&I Cup, and I was watching the game, and I was away from the club maybe a year and a half, and there was guys coming through that I didn't really recognise, and they were some fantastic players. And then you're watching Leinster playing in the European Cup the following day. You're kind of going, what way are these guys going to get into the Leinster team? And it's very, very tough. It's so competitive. But are they good enough to be, professionals in another Irish province? Absolutely. Are they good enough to go over to the UK and have a great career? Without doubt. But are they good enough to pass out the guys that are ahead of them in Leinster? It's very tough.
We did want to just talk briefly about the 2015 World Cup, and that is one of those performances where the aftermath, the entire thinking of Joe Schmidt changes, because we just didn't have the required depth. Ultimately, we ended up missing 3 key forwards who are injured or suspended from the France game to the Argentina game. So what's your recollection of the Argentina game at this point?
It's still a bit of a haze, really, to be honest. Did
you ever watch it back?
No, I've never watched it back. Never really reviewed it. Something I probably should do. It was just one of those games that, like any match, if you played it 5 times, I reckon we would have won a few times, but you only get one shot, got off to a slow start, got ourselves in a position to potentially win the game. Didn't take that opportunity, and then it stepped away from us at the end. It was such a disappointment, really, having gone from the ultimate high the week before of beating France, getting effectively a home quarter, a seed 1 quarter final, to then 5-6 days later it all being over. It was a tough pill to take. All right.
Yeah, the early tries were actually the thing that kills us, right? Getting back into the game takes such a serious effort that the team is almost a bit spent from that.
Yeah, and it was something my granddad actually said to me when I was growing up. He said so often I've seen in sport, be it soccer, Gaelic football, rugby, when a team does go behind and they use the energy to get back and get level, the team that was originally ahead then retakes the lead. So often that happens in sport, and it actually crossed my mind during the game. I was kind of thinking, we're nearly back level here. We need to keep the foot in the gas. But I suppose the brakes didn't quite go our way in that last 20 minutes, and that was it.
Do you reflect on that game? Is that something that you think about a lot, or is it something that you kind of go, okay, I need as a sports person not to think about that too much?
Yeah, no, I did. I thought about it for a very long time afterwards. What could I have done differently? What did give me peace of mind was I felt my preparation for the game couldn't have been any better, as in what I could control as my preparation, and that does give you peace of mind. You go, if I went back, would I have done anything differently? Maybe now I would have, because I know more, but at the time I was doing absolutely everything I could. And when something like that doesn't work out for you, you think you don't have any regrets, and I don't have any regrets from it, which does give me peace of mind.
The other thing that must give you peace of mind is the quality of the performance the previous week against France, where you come on and steer the ship home.
Yeah,
your form was good, that you were playing well at that stage.
Yeah, no, I did. I felt like I was playing well. I was very comfortable in the system Joe had at the time. I felt really fit and strong. Thought my goal kicking was in a good place. You know, it was. It was just one of those ones. You know, maybe it was a step too far for us with all the injuries and suspensions, as you mentioned. But I've no doubt that if we played that game, 10 times, we probably would have won it, 6 or 7 times. It was just one of those days where they got off to a fast start and we struggled to recover from it.
Yeah.
It seems like there's been a lot of lessons learned from that perspective, from that game, like just from Joe Schmidt's perspective, really, over the last couple of years, and how he approached even the 3-test series over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like that's a measure of Joe, that for someone who's such a quality coach, that he's always learning himself, and he'll openly say that, which is great. And I think the way he managed to fit so many guys in, getting them starts in Australia, will really stand to him going into next year's November series and Six Nations and leading on to the World Cup. That can only be a massive positive to give guys those high level games, because I think that will just, like, for example, Rob Herring and Scannell getting starts, that's going to just push their thresholds all the way up. So when they're back playing for Ulster or Munster now, it's going to seem pretty easy for them, and they're going to be thinking, oh, I'm above this level, and that's going to drive them on even further again. And then when they get to the November internationals, they've been there, done that. It's nothing as daunting as kind of going, I've only started 1 or 2 international games, as opposed to going, I went away to Australia and put together a really good performance. It's something that they can, really stand over.
Yeah, it's a pretty good time for Irish rugby. It's been like the greatest year of all time, by any measures, really. We've never had a year as successful as that, so things are pretty positive at the minute. Yeah,
and that's no fluke. Like, there's been a huge amount of planning in that, and I think the big thing when obviously I'm over in Bristol now, and you see the players in the Premiership and players playing with England, and like, they look tired, and they are, because they're just not managed as well. And it's not just from 1 year; it's an accumulative. It's over probably 5 years. You're looking at, let's say, an extra 5, 6, 7 games. That it just adds up, and it takes its toll on you. And that's something that the IRFU have right. They can. The international players are still fresh come the end of the year, that they can pull out a big series performance against Australia, and no doubt when the start of the year comes, they'll be able to perform again.
Ian, great stuff. So if anybody wants any GDPR stuff, where do they go?
So it's dataships.io, and if they have any questions, hello at dataships.io is the email.
Well, best of luck for the coming season. It sounds like you're going to tear up trees at Bristol, and that actually their expectations are more than just staying in the Premiership. Reading what Pat Lam's been saying, it's like he wants to cause a bit of trouble and bloody some noses.
Yeah, we'll be aiming up the top, so I think we'll be... hopefully we'll have a point of difference in the league, and teams will struggle when they play us. So, no, it's really exciting.
Good stuff. Best of luck, Ian.
Thanks very much for having me in.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.
OTB.